I'd like to call the Wheaton Park District Board of Commissioners October meeting to order. Mike, please take the roll.
Commissioner Vyers.
Here.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Here.
Commissioner Meade.
Here.
Commissioner Fry.
Here.
Commissioner Barrett.
Here.
President Kelly.
Here. Before I get into the community input portion of the meeting, I understand there's some scheduling conflicts for commissioners with the November meeting. So I have a proposal to move the November 15th board meeting from the 15th to the 29th. Does that work for everybody?
Yes. For me.
We'll have full board then. Okay, in light of that, staff has asked for an extra week then to get ready for the Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee meeting, so I suggest we move that from the 1st to the 8th. Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so Mike, you'll make the changes on the website. And I
We
noticed
we
that
will.
November meetings will be the 8th and the 29th, not the 1st and the 15th.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. On behalf of the Wheaton Park District Board of Commissioners, I want to welcome our guests to tonight's monthly board meeting. We have a substantial number of residents here to address the board, so here's how we can accomplish this. When I call your name, please come to the podium and state your name and address prior to speaking so your comments will be recorded. I realize our policy allows 5 minutes of comment per speaker, and I'm asking if you can keep it to 3 minutes, it would be appreciated. That being said, those who need 5 minutes may have it. As stated in our board's policy manual, the purpose of public participation is to allow the public the opportunity to make a statement to the board. The purpose of public participation is not to provoke a debate with the board. Once an individual has spoken, that individual may not speak on the same issue again. Public comments are important to the board. However, it's the board's policy not to take action on items until time has been taken to gather information and discuss all options. Lack of action does not imply lack of interest in the issues. During community input, the board will typically ask residents to provide input prior to accepting input from non-residents. Do we have the sign-in sheets, Mike?
We do.
All right. Okay. First speaker is Carol Lathrop.
I live at N650 Coventry Drive, Wheaton. Walking distance to the zoo. Not all change is bad change. The zoo is a popular draw for hundreds of people.
We're having trouble hearing you. Can you,
Are you,
at least I was.
can you hear me?
I know, is that microphone on?
Oh, now, okay?
Yes, now it is better.
Much better.
All right. Not all change is bad change. The zoo is a popular draw for hundreds of people. Parking is a problem. The Park District and City are trying to solve that problem in a way that satisfies the needs of the neighbors and increasing numbers of visitors. Significant work is planned for Gary Avenue. New increased zoo parking on the east side of Gary will focus on safety, discreet lighting, buffering of noise through landscaping, and fencing which will control crossing at lights. The goal is to allow this jewel of a zoo to continue to teach generations to connect with the animals and to understand the interconnection that exists between us. Not all change is bad change.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Laura Scariano. Scariano.
So I'm not sure, I don't know if I signed the right one. I'm a non-resident.
You did not, but since you're up there, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that there were two.
That's okay.
I need bifocals, okay. Good evening. My name is Laura Scariano. I was born and raised in a south suburb bordering Chicago. Not a lot of beauty and wildlife there. So when I moved my kids and my family to Glen Ellen several years ago, it was amazing for me to learn that there was a zoo almost right in our own backyard. And I knew one of my kids in particular would absolutely love it. Ian, my son, is 16 years old. Ian has high-functioning autism and a nearly debilitating stutter. To tell you that my boy has had to overcome challenges is an understatement. He is incredibly intelligent, he has a steel-trap memory, loves researching history, but above all else, he loves animals. With all of the gifts my son possesses, he's always found it very hard to make friends, so hard to make meaningful connections to people because they simply didn't want to take the time to listen to him. He felt so different, isolated, and unheard until Cosley Zoo. The first time he visited Cosley, he lit up like a Christmas tree. I said, "Oh my gosh, what a beautiful gem this is. An oasis in the middle of our busy urban lives." I immediately knew I had to ask about classes or tours for Ian, but the answer I got was so much better than a simple yes. They had a junior zookeeper program for teens. I was like, what? Oh my God, I was so excited. So he interviewed, he got into the program, and my son's life changed. He became less withdrawn, built up the courage to speak to the public about the animals, and people actually listened to him. He recently became certified in animal handling, and he's made friends who like to discuss the things he's passionate about. For the last 3 years, he's gained astounding benefits from working at the zoo. Through the zoo's nurturing education program, his role as a junior zookeeper is a very legitimate stepping stone toward his goal of becoming an animal biologist. And as we know, Cosley Zoo is beloved by generations of children and families, mine included, a place of traditions, picking out Christmas trees and pumpkins and birthday parties, all in an amazing learning environment surrounded by the cherished rescued animals who serve as ambassadors of their species. Cosley Zoo is indeed a gem, and I know this community takes so much pride in it and wants it to flourish. I understand that there are concerns regarding the expansion of the zoo's parking, and I get that people may question the necessity for this expansion. But if you've been there, I think it's readily apparent that the community outreach and revenue the zoo is capable of generating is so very limited by the obviously inadequate existing parking lot. I implore you to approve the expansion that will help ensure Cosley's long-term success, outreach, and revenue. I drop my son off at the zoo frequently for his shifts. The countless times I have been there over the years, I consistently see cars repeatedly circling the lot, looking for a space, often dangerously backing up the traffic on Gary, trying to get into the overcrowded lot, and eventually leaving altogether, sometimes just in frustration. I implore you to approve the expansion to enable more families to create cherished memories. But above all, I implore you to believe me when I tell you that supporting the zoo's proposed new parking lot means you'll be helping to profoundly touch more lives, educate more lives, and change so many more lives with incredible impact. Imagine all of the future generations of children who will be lucky enough to benefit from this growth, and that you'll be able to lean down and say to them with a smile, "I helped do that." I know that they would tell you how grateful they are that you did. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy Needham.
Hi. My name is Christy Needham. I live at 1311 North Carlton Avenue in Wheaton. Before I begin my remarks, I'd like to ask that everyone here in opposition to the Cosley Zoo parking lot project now stand, or if standing, please raise your hand. Thank you. Please be seated. The importance of the Park District Board is paramount. This situation is exactly the reason that an oversight board is necessary, Because as board members, you don't have a duty to the Cosley Zoo Foundation Board, or to Cosley Zoo's donor base, or to non-residents that enjoy the zoo. You don't have a duty to rubber stamp every project that the Park District proposes, because if that were the case, your existence would be irrelevant. But your existence is critical. You are elected officials whose purpose is to represent the interests and requests and concerns of the residents of Wheaton who elected you. Your role is to serve as the check and balance in this process, to ensure that the Park District truly is serving the best interests of the taxpayers that fund its endeavors, and to prevent the Park District from going wildly astray from its mandate and duty to the residents of Wheaton. And that is exactly what is happening with this project. Cosley Zoo's mission statement does not mention serving the residents of Wheaton, despite the fact that the taxpayers fund 2/3 of its yearly operating costs and will likely be on the hook to pay for the $50 million expansion plan that they're planning. In fact, their marketing slogan for this project is Renew the Zoo, a campaign for DuPage's Cosley Zoo. And they state a goal of becoming the largest and most popular attraction in DuPage County, of course at the expense of the Wheaton taxpayers. Would it not better serve the residents of Wheaton to consider moving the Cosley Zoo to the DuPage County Fairgrounds or another appropriate venue where they would have more space, plenty of parking, but under the purview of the county, where the residents of Wheaton would still be able to enjoy the improved facilities, but the cost burden would be shared across the residents of the county? Unlike Cosley Zoo, the Wheaton Park District does have a duty to serve the Wheaton residents. It seems that you have lost sight of that mission, or at least grossly perverted it in the quest for growth. Turning Cosley into the largest and most popular attraction in DuPage County will not enrich the quality of the lives of the residents of Wheaton. In fact, it comes at a great personal and financial cost to many neighboring residents, who you'll hear from tonight. I'd like to remind you that we live in a democracy, not a dictatorship. It's not the job of the Park District to decide for us what's in our best interests and let us know after the fact. It's the role of the Park District as public servants to listen to the concerns and the wants of the constituents and to execute those plans to the best of their ability. The Park District doesn't need to guess what residents want. In fact, the 3 areas that residents felt the Park District needed to improve on in the 2016 survey were 1, involving the community in project planning, 2, more transparency in terms of where you're spending money, and 3, the conservation of green spaces. How ironic that just a year after getting this feedback, you came up with a $50 million plan to expand Cosley Zoo, requiring to pave over 4 acres of green space without asking or involving any of its residents. Outside of the Cosley Zoo Foundation Board, their donor base, and a handful of people that they've found to come speak, no one in Wheaton has asked for this project. And in fact, in the 2016 survey, over 1/3 of residents were opposed or strongly opposed to this parking lot expansion. Less than 1/3 supported it, and 98% of Wheaton residents like the Cosley Zoo exactly the way that it is. We have a change.org petition with 1,700 signatures opposing this plan. All of the people who showed up here tonight who are taking time away from their families and their other interests oppose this plan. You could check Cosley's Facebook page where they've posted their revised parking lot plan that has 83 overwhelmingly negative comments in response. The Park District rolled out an amended plan without consulting or engaging with any of the residents who oppose it. And I gotta tell you, it looks a lot like the exact initial plan that they proposed in 2017. Isn't that an old politician's trick? To propose something so extreme and outrageous that when you scale it back, it looks like you compromised, but you still get exactly what you wanted in the first place? The amended plan has not adequately addressed any of our concerns, and it remains unacceptable. I sincerely hope that this board takes their responsibility of their elected office and their obligation to the constituents who elected them seriously, and in doing so rejects the plan to build this parking lot in the middle of a residential neighborhood, which will irreversibly harm so many of Wheaton's residents. The costs to this project far outweigh any benefit to Wheaton residents, and the Park District Fund should be directed or diverted toward one of the many other worthy projects that will primarily benefit its residents, rather than subsidizing this experience for the rest of DuPage County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
A number of us have printed copies of our remarks for you.
I'm so-
A number of us have printed copies of our remarks.
Thank you. Liz Westergaard.
Good evening. You are proposing to spend over $50 million to pave over green space and expand Cosley Zoo with more charismatic animals and exhibits that have more attraction value, and first floor food and gift courts properly designed for maximum impact and success, 3,000 square feet each. You plan to have night functions, parties, after-hours rentals, and events. The audience? Regional visitors from DuPage and surrounding counties, most from DuPage and Cook. Cosley Zoo has developed ambition to be a popular and successful attraction in DuPage County and beyond. Why? We don't know, and I believe you can't verbalize it because it has to do with the monetizing of animals. The animals of Cosley Zoo won't benefit. As a resident, I won't benefit. It is a money-making scheme. At first, I was only opposed to the parking lot. Then the whole True and Real plan, designed by Torres Design Consortium, was discovered via the Freedom of Information Act. I received parts 1, 2, and 3. However, I had to re-ask for part 4 of this strategic business plan. Your attorney tells me you would need extended time because the business plan requires examination to determine if they are exempt from disclosure or be revealed with deletions. Section 7 protects information for several reasons. Who is behind this grandiose master plan? Who are you protecting? Could it be the arm of Cosley Zoo, the Cosley Foundation? The Wheaton Park District in 2016 and 2020 did the survey that Christy talked about, and I need to add that U of I, who administered the survey, reported 1/3 of residents stated the Wheaton Park District was ineffective at involving the community in the planning of future projects. In 2020, residents rated Cosley Zoo their second favorite park district facility. Besides pandemic opinions, users were pleading for an indoor pool, improvements for numerous parks with restrooms available, and repeatedly for more communication, more transparency. Elmhurst College advised transparency, leveling with them, being open, taking ideas into consideration, being transparent, finally stating stakeholder engagement is a crucial responsibility. 2 meetings 6 years apart at which you present to us and give sarcastic replies without listening or making changes doesn't amount to hosting multiple public meetings with the neighbors of the zoo to discuss these plans, as you claim. Even in the big city of Chicago, it is a requirement to meet with the community and make changes based on community feedback. You must elicit feedback from the people who are taxpayers and people who love the zoo. Then you must be brave enough to discuss plans with us. Why have you given us the brush off and turned to donors and members to get their opinions about the future of Cosley Zoo? In May, Cosley Foundation hired a PR firm, PCI. On September 29th, donors and members received an emailed SurveyMonkey from Jill Allreed of PCI to elicit their opinions on the future of Cosley Zoo. We did not receive such surveys. Jill Allreed suggested that it would be too expensive. This response doesn't make sense. You are catering to people who are donors, may or may not be Wheaton residents, literally at the expense of the people who live here, pay taxes, and love Cosley Zoo. This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense either. In 2015, there were 13 Wheaton Park District employees who masterminded the plan. Then the plan was rubber stamped by the Board of Commissioners. In 2017, Mr. Bernard told me that I was lucky to even be hearing about the plan. And did I want 5 houses back there? Referring to open space that is thought to have been purchased to alleviate the well-known flooding from Winfield Creek. And yes, I would rather have 5 houses back there. Mr. Bernard was intimidating. Ms. Walgren has no ability to voice any opinion. In fact, none of you do. Illinois State Representative Amy Grant's office refers to you as a rubber stamp board. They have recommended that we voice our opinions loudly and then vote you out ASAP. Do you want it to be known As a rubber stamp board, you don't have to act like boiled frogs. You have the power to do some great community building of trust. You are the bosses of Mr. Bernard. You have power to turn this thing around and change the reputation of the Wheaton Park District in this community, from one who is well known for ignoring citizens to a park district who involves stakeholders. For starters, you can change these meetings from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. as stated in your bylaws, so that working people can actually attend the meeting. When there is only one person who speaks for the entire Wheaton Park District, Cosley Zoo, and the Cosley Foundation, that puts a question mark in my mind. Mr. Bernard, you are compensated by the Wheaton Park District, who is supported by our taxes. We pay you well for your work. Do you also get paid by the Cosley Foundation? I have a problem with you, the board, and you, the director, and the private and secretive Cosley Foundation for inventing and supporting this capitalistic project and exploiting the natural attraction people have for animals by turning animals into exhibits and turning our lovely little community, Cosley Zoo, into a regional money-making scheme. Thank you.
Mary Lee.
Good evening. Mary Lee, 1310 North Carlton Avenue. My husband Buddy and I are 16-year residents, and our property is located within 20 feet of your proposed parking lot. I'm here tonight to reply to your response to our concern about property value. Your response, quote, having a strong park district enhances property value within a community. Further, quote, real estate sales show that this type of development is not detrimental to property value. I did not see any cited studies by industry experts or data to support these claims on a very critical resident concern. I have a study, however, to cite that was posted by the National Recreation and Park Association from March of 2020. The study is titled, How Much Impact Do Parks Have on Property Values? This study in particular aimed to look at data supporting parks as entities that add to home and property value. There are dozens of such studies that all come to the same conclusion. Open green space equates to higher property and home values. The same study, however, had unexpected negative impact shown on homes when the park studied, quote, attributed to noise, traffic congestion, and reduced privacy. This was noted causing, again quoting, sufficiently disturbing impact to adjacent property owners that outweighed the positive amenity value associated with being near a park. Your master plan hits all of the metrics for having a negative impact on property value of adjacent properties, per the study shared by the National Recreation and Parks Association. I was unable to find studies specifically looking at Park District built standalone 150 plus spot parking lot on previously open green space and how it would impact property value. So I reached out to the primary author of this study, and to my delight, he replied back. Dr. John Crompton, PhD, who is a university distinguished professor, Regents professor, and presidential professor for teaching excellence in the Department of Recreation, Park, and Tourism Sciences at Texas A&M University, and an elected council member for the city of College Station in Texas. Dr. Compton stated that he was not aware of any studies relating to the impact of large parking lots, but states, and I quote, invariably, a decline on properties that abut active athletic parks because of lights, traffic, etc., that could be applied to our situation. An expert on the topic with data who can further support us if needed. Wonderful. Finally, My husband and I spoke to an attorney and asked if we were to sell our home now, before any of this was built, could we sell without disclosing knowledge of a plan for a parking lot to potential buyers? The attorney and subsequent attorney said no, it would be unethical not to have that be part of the property disclosure. So your parking lot is something we would have to disclose to potential buyers, similarly to water damage and mold history. That's hardly something a realtor would lead with in a listing. I understand now, after doing research and after speaking with an expert, why your response around property value was nebulous conjecture. The reason is you know this will have inverse impact on our property value. I assure you this, we will not voluntarily surrender our established home equity for the sake of a parking lot and a pipe dream. I ask you, Park District Commissioners, to uphold your identified roles as representing the residents of Wheaton by not approving this plan to go forward for City Council approval. As other residents will outline tonight, your own survey indicated that residents love Cosley as is. We must therefore interpret any moving forward on this project to be indicative of a vanity project by those who insist on making it happen, thereby negating any say tax-paying Park District funding residents have in what happens to the value of one of our largest lifetime investments, our home. Thank you.
Alex Lee.
Hello. Hello. My name is Alexandra Lee, and I live on 752 Ralph Court in Wheaton, Illinois, with my husband, Brendan, and 2 children, Kieran, who is 2, and Colleen, who is 5 months old. And my house is directly bordering this proposed parking lot. My husband and I moved to Wheaton in 2020. We started looking for a house in the suburbs because we were hoping to start a family. We looked at several houses, and when we found this house, I knew there was something special about it. I could imagine having children and watching them grow up in this home. We loved the proximity to Northside Park and the Cosley Zoo. Most of all, we loved that it was in a secluded part of North Wheaton with a large yard and a lot of privacy. However, the very thing we love most about this home may soon be taken away from us without our consent. I am speaking today about the zoo's plan for the expanded parking lot. I have numerous concerns about this lot, from noise and light pollution to flooding and construction. However, my largest concern about this parking lot is safety. I have a 2-year-old boy. 2-year-old boys are very hard to wrangle sometimes. It is one thing to get a toddler through a parking lot when you don't have to cross the street. It is an entirely different beast to tackle as a parent when you have to take said toddler safely through a parking lot and have to cross the street with them in a safe manner. We attend St. Michael's Church in Wheaton and have to deal with crossing the street from the parking lot to the church every weekend. Oftentimes, one of us is carrying the car seat with our infant, and the other has a 2-year-old in a football hold crossing the street since he is too young to understand that he must always hold someone's hand crossing the street. Why would we want young children, who are the target audience of the Cosley Zoo, to be crossing the street to enjoy the zoo? Wouldn't we want the parking lot on the same side of the street to make it easier for your target audience, young children? My best friend, who was 25 at the time, was killed in a hit and run in 2016 while she was crossing the street. If this can happen to an adult woman, you bet it can happen to a young child. We simply cannot trust drivers to follow the rules of the road. We have to account for human nature. The Cosley Zoo's audience is children. The zoo should be doing everything in its power to keep its visitors, children, safe. That is the primary responsibility and the primary responsibility of the Wheaton Park District. Everyone who I've spoken to about this parking lot has brought up this point, that it is not safe. The proximity to Wheaton North also puts the children crossing the road at an even larger risk, since there are inevitably a lot of teenage drivers in this area. I want to make clear, I am not against the zoo. We love the Cosley Zoo. We go every weekend with our son. He loves going and seeing the ducks. He talks about how ducks are his favorite animal and sometimes says he dreams about ducks. We are very pro Cosley Zoo. We just want this parking lot to make sense and be safe for everyone involved. This plan is a tragedy and disaster waiting to happen. If this plan is approved, I ask you, how will you be able to sleep at night when tragedy strikes? Because I guarantee, if this lot is approved, a tragedy occurring is a matter of when and not if. Thank you for your time.
Sharon Biesdorf.
Good evening. My name is Sharon Beiersdorf. I live at 766 Ralph Court, actually right next door to Alex, so I'm adjacent to the proposed parking lot as well. I am here to share some facts regarding safety. They fall into 5 categories. Number 1, from the U.S. Department of Transportation from 2021, there is significant data that shows an increase in the percentage of fatalities involving young children as pedestrians. Among these statistics, pedestrians hit by a car traveling 40 miles an hour have only a 15% chance of survival. Number 2, vehicle accidents involving pedestrians continue to increase despite the total number of miles driven decreasing. Studies have found that one reason for the increase in pedestrian accidents is due to driver distractions. According to the CDC, distracted driving claims 8 lives per day. Drivers are distracted with their phones at least 10% of the time. Distracted driving accounted for 27% of all crashes. Keeping in mind the close proximity to Wheaton North High School, 42% of high school students across the U.S. admit that they text or email while driving. And this age group also feels the strongest urge to respond to a text immediately. Drivers were more than 30% more distracted in 2022 than in 2020. Number 3, the pedestrians are also more distracted than ever, according to the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. The number of injuries to pedestrians using their phones has more than doubled since 2004. While walking, 60% of pedestrians are distracted by activities other than their phone, such as assisting their children, pushing strollers, or attending to family members with special needs. Number 4, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration points out a trap people fall into is they make assumptions about the safety of crosswalks, such as a green light means that it is safe to cross. If you see the driver, they see you. The driver will stop if they see you entering the crosswalk. They also list common types of collisions between young pedestrians and motorists, including a child darting out into the street, vehicle turning into the path of a child hidden from view. Number 5, and most importantly, I would also like to share with you some information from University of Illinois at Champaign regarding developmental stages of children and accident risk potential. Keeping in mind the predominant age of most of the visitors, birth to 3 years, very young children are naturally curious and have an inability to recognize dangerous situations, putting young children at a high risk of injury. 4 years to 6 years, children continue to explore with little thought to danger. Although children begin to develop some self-control during this period, they do not easily recognize dangerous situations and often do not have sufficient knowledge or control of their bodies to avoid danger. They also tend to become caught up in their own actions and pay little attention to the larger world around them, especially in the excitement of play. And finally, 7 to 9 years. Children begin to recognize common dangers, but they continue to act before they think, especially if it involves something that is very exciting to them. They do not recognize dangerous situations fast enough to avoid them, and once in a dangerous situation, they do not have the problem-solving skills to avoid injury. Unfortunately, these limitations in thinking abilities are often not evident to many parents or grandparents until their child experiences an accident. Let's choose to invest in the safety of our children instead of putting them in harm's way. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Catherine Harrison.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Harrison, and I live in the Pioneer Terrace neighborhood at 1305 North Carlton Avenue. I'd like to address the Park District today to express my concerns about the Cosley Zoo parking lot expansion plan. Many of my neighbors and other concerned citizens have already spoken expressing concerns about the negative impacts of this project. Concerns include the potential for increased flooding, increased traffic, the negative impact of property values, and safety concerns for both pedestrians and residents. I share these same concerns. You will see my house on every image and drawing of this parking lot design. It is unavoidable. The proposed parking lot is adjacent to my backyard on all sides. Most of the year, you can drive down Gary Avenue and not even know that my house exists. I like it that way. The mature trees that surround my backyard provide privacy and help muffle the sounds coming from Cosley Zoo and the lights and traffic on Gary Avenue. The parking lot plan will remove all of that, leaving my house on display for all of Cosley Zoo and anyone else that walks or drives down Gary Avenue. There will no longer be a sound buffer or any privacy. Before moving to Wheaton, I lived in Oak Park, where I had a parking lot adjacent to my house. I wish I were kidding that I find myself in a position where I might be living next to a parking lot again. At least the first time, the parking lot was there first. The concerns that have been raised are real. A parking lot brings noise, litter, pollution, and even crime. I have firsthand experience of that reality, which is exactly why I moved to Wheaton. This is the last place I would have expected this to happen. The Park District has done nothing to alleviate those concerns. A significant landscape barrier will not solve the problems it will create for those directly affected. What I find most difficult to comprehend about this project is the blatant disregard for the community that it impacts the most. How can you propose constructing a parking lot in a residential community? I would love to hear from the Park District on what other options were considered before deciding to pursue this location. Maybe it's easy to make that decision when it's not in your neighborhood. The board is here to represent the residents of Wheaton, so I'm asking you to put yourself in my position and that of my neighbors. If this were your house, your backyard, would you support this? Thank you for your time.
Jeff Westergaard.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to express my thoughts today on the zoo expansion. My name is Jeff Westergaard. I live at 742 Ralph Court. I'm coming to you tonight to talk about financial aspects of the expansion plan. I have a 40-year career in fixed income finance, 30 of those years specializing in municipal bond markets and finance. And the facts that I'm going to present today are based on a review of publicly available documents, such as the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the district and the IRS 990 filings for the foundation. So the first point that I want to make tonight is that Cosley Zoo is an attraction that is in existence for non-residents of the Wheaton Park District, and that those non-residents thus pay no property taxes to the district. If you review the publicly available attendance information for the years 2019 to 2022, and everything I'm going to quote leaves out 2020, so COVID is not going to impact this analysis. The ratio of non-residents to residents averages 6-to-1, 6 non-residents to every resident that visits the zoo. The resident numbers over that period of time are flat. There are about 20,000 resident visitors a year. Any growth in visitors comes from outside residents. Now, the plan itself states the goal of this expansion is to attract more non-resident visitors. None of those non-resident visitors pay any taxes. If we look at doubling the parking lot size, that implies doubling the non-resident visitors, a 12-to-1 ratio instead of the current 6-to-1 ratio. All right, why is this important? It's because Cosley Zoo is subsidized by our property taxes. Again, this analysis is for 2019 to 2022. So in that period of time, Cosley shows an average of $1.7 million in total revenues annually, just under $1.5 million in expenses annually, and I'm going to call it allocation of property tax revenues of $1 million annually. You put all those numbers together, and without the property taxes, Cosley's running an annual deficit of $750,000 every year. On average, those taxes, the allocation pays 70% of the annual expenses of the zoo, despite all the ways that Cosley raises revenues, run for the animals, Christmas trees, wine fundraising, grants from the foundation. It's a $750,000 annual deficit that this zoo generates on an operating basis without a property tax subsidy. All right, why does it matter? It matters because Park District residents, me, my colleagues, my neighbors, my friends here, are paying for a zoo that benefits non-residents. And the expansion stated goal is to attract more of those non-residents. And I think that's fundamentally wrong, and it's not even debatable. All right, the plan obviously is going to exacerbate this problem. There is no way the zoo can self-generate revenue that would pay for what's being proposed. Even if there's a way to pay to build a parking lot and there's a way to pay for the zoo expansion on an operating basis, this zoo is not going to generate revenues that will pay for the annual costs. We already pay more taxes than our neighbors. Wheaton Park District millage is almost twice that of the Naperville Park District. It's 1.5 times that of the Glen Ellen Park District. We're paying, as taxpayers, we're paying a lot for what I think is an excellent set of benefits that the Park District provides. But this zoo doesn't fit that definition. So even if you ignore all of the many compelling reasons that have already been stated, and I'm sure more that will come, this expansion is just a terrible idea. The fact that it inevitably is going to lead to more property taxes being allocated to run a zoo that benefits non-residents makes no sense. And I think the plan should just be dead on arrival. It really doesn't have a reason to move forward. I hope that you see the folly in pursuing this plan, and I hope that you do the fiscally responsible thing for your constituents. Thank you.
John Patterson.
Good afternoon. My name is John Patterson, and I live at 1849 Cherry Street, and I am a resident of the Wheaton Park District. My wife and I are against the proposed expansion of Cosley Zoo, including the parking lot. While we do not live near Cosley Zoo, we do live next to an area which they paved paradise and put up a parking lot. I'm a proponent of creating and maintaining open spaces. Upon hearing the proposed annexation of property owned by the Wheaton Park District to the city of Wheaton and the expansion of Cosley Zoo, I thought that the Wheaton Park District also shared these values of mine. I assumed this because in 1997, the Wheaton Park District asked the city of Wheaton to, and I quote, consider joining the Park District in the acquisition of 2 parcels totaling more than 3 acres for an approximate cost of $347,800. These parcels are partially within the floodplain and adjacent to Winfield Creek and Gary Avenue. The Wheaton Park District requested $86,950 of the approximate $350,000 from the city of Wheaton on April 18th of that year. Robert Dunsmore, Director of Parks and Recreation at that time, also stated, the city would have the option of retaining any ownership, interest, and liability in this property. This acquisition can be used for future stormwater storage and wetland creation. Both would have a positive impact on flooding while improving water quality within the Winfield Creek watershed. The Wheaton City Manager, Don Rose, then presented this information to the mayor and the then City Council on May 22nd, 1997. While there is no particular benefit to the city of Wheaton at this time in assisting with the purchase of this property, there may be a long-term benefit if this land or other land owned by the Park District in the general vicinity can be used to create additional water storage, which would be utilized to eliminate flooding problems which occur along North Main Street. Over the past 30 years, the need for natural areas to absorb water and protect our delicate wildlife and ecosystems has only increased. Why has the Wheaton Park District gone against their own values and goals to protect the land around Northside Park, Lincoln Marsh, and Cosley Zoo? The only reason I can see is based on the Cosley Zoo vision for the future. Make the Wheaton Park District taxpayer-funded zoo a DuPage County Zoo. In conclusion, I feel the Wheaton Park District needs to reevaluate its purposes and goals for all Park District taxpayers. Its leadership needs to make sure its priorities, which would include maintaining open spaces in our city, be an advocate for creating additional water storage to assist in curtailing flooding for current and future residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Sylvester Bernhardt.
Right one? Okay. Hi, my name is Sylvester Bernhardt, and I live at 1317 Carlton Avenue in Wheaton. And I thought I'd bring some pictures to the light because I think we talk a lot, but a picture tells 1,000 words. I'm a school teacher, and I always like to use visuals. Helps my students comprehend a little better. So our current site, as you can see here, is the outlined construction area of where the Cosley Zoo would go. Initially, at that first meeting, when the Williams house was going to be demolished, this was presented to us, and I believe this is the Torres rendering of Ace Torres, who's a world-renowned kind of zoo designer. And as you can see, there's quite a substantial buffer here, and quite a few trees. So it was a little surprising when the next proposal was the one that was presented in July, which kind of did not have that same feel. It feels a little more cold and sterile, you know, kind of like a Kmart parking lot right next to our house. And so then, you know, truth be told, you guys heard us and you proposed a revised plan. But if I look at this plan compared to this plan, there's substantially less trees along the western portion, the eastern portion, forgive me, of the area. And, you know, this seems like all of the trees that were here were kind of pushed towards the front. Now, and it's not showing up very well, but, you know, you can kind of see the 1-to-1 ratio area of the zoo versus the area that that you guys wish to develop for parking lot. And, you know, to me, this is the 5 acres of the zoo. This is what's interesting to me. So here's our 100-year flood map, and those are the two areas that are going to be proposed to improve, right? And, you know, as you can see, the 500-year flood map is right adjacent to it. And, you know, in thinking about this, having them both combined, there's a bit of concern because, and I know you can't see it very well here, but if you look at the elevations, the topmost portion of the parking lot area is at 750 feet. The lowest most portion is at 730 feet. So we all agree, does everybody agree here that water flows downhill? Right, okay. So, and this portion here is also kind of similar in that area. So, you know, I know the parking lot is supposed to be permeable pavers, right? An ecological solution that will allow runoff to be filtered before it is introduced into the watershed, which is adjacent to it. And so I thought, you know, well, I'm thinking about if the water does not necessarily, it does flow downhill, and this area back here is actually lower than this area here, and this area is lower than this area here, the water is going to travel in this direction. So with the absence of pumps that are in Northside Park, which were installed to kind of help pump things around, they're about over here. I know that because they didn't upgrade the electrical for the pumps. So I was actually cool. It was kind of a cool thing. The electrical lines kind of exploded under the ground, and ComEd had to come out in the wintertime to patch those because they were initially tied into the main service over along Gary Avenue. So I went there and I just wanted to see a little better picture. I took my laser level out and I shot a laser about a foot off the ground, and I can see right here where it ends is just getting above the second floor, where the second floor level and first level meet of my friend Mary Lee's house there. So it's shining about 10 feet up. So there's going to be a considerable amount of backfill that's going to have to happen for this parking lot to occur. All of this area around here, all these trees and all that nonsense is going to have to be filled because obviously the water, you want it to flow towards Winfield Creek, so that whole area has to be raised up so it can be diverted towards the creek. And, you know, here's a better picture. That's the way that the creek goes. This is where the zoo is, and, you know, that's where the parking lot is. And as you can see, it does make a beautiful elevation. It goes directly towards the Winfield Creek and watershed, so that water naturally goes this way. And, you know, kind of what I'm saying this, the watershed is where the natural direction that the water will go. So as you can see, the parking lot proposed is being built directly over a watershed that ends at the Winfield Creek. Now, why are watersheds important? Well, this is how they work. All the water kind of goes into there, the tributaries, the rain, et cetera, maybe a road, and then it goes down into an area where it percolates through the soil. So, you know, it's supposed to go directly into the floodplain. And, you know, I thought about it. Well, what happens in the wintertime? Because where I come from, the ground freezes. You know, you have to dig post holes down 48 inches. That's code. And because the ground is going to freeze. So all of that water, let's say snow, runoff, all that other stuff from cars parking there, the oil, the heavy metals, and all that other stuff, the subsoil will not filter that because it'll be frozen. So it's like water traveling over ice. So I think about that, and I think about all those blanding turtles that are hibernating in the mud during the wintertime, and they wake up and they come up through the creek, and they come out into the water, and they have to kind of go through toxic metals and oil, antifreeze, stuff from cars, which normally would have been filtered by the soil, but since it's frozen, it won't necessarily do that. And, just an inch of rain will divert 42,000 gallons. Now, the size of a 42,000 gallon tank is, roughly 16 feet. It's a pretty big sized tank that, you'd have to dig into the parking lot to put in there to mitigate all this, and then you'd have to put in pumps and other things like that. I kind of wonder, I don't know if this is going to really work. So the radius of the area
Excuse
that's
me.
affected, sorry?
We're already over 7 minutes. Are you getting close to finishing?
Yeah, I am. I'll get to the end.
Can you please
Yeah,
do your best to wrap it up, please?
gotcha.
Thank you.
So, I'm not going to talk about the sizes of them. In terms of Brookfield and the comparable AZA zoos, you got 235 acres. You can see that there. I'm sure you guys will have a copy of this. You can review it later. I'm not going to bore you. I'm not going to take up your time. But this is what's interesting to me. The marsh naturally floods May 15, 2020, May 1st, 2019, February 21st, 2018, May 1st, 2017. That's the marsh. Does what it does. Why do we want to add a whole bunch of water and make a mess out of it? Thank you for your time. I appreciate you letting me go over it.
So before I call the next speaker, we still have close to 20 people to go. So I would ask people to do their best to try to keep it within the time limits. The next would be Sylvester, I'm sorry, I didn't mark that. Tim Youngren.
Was it?
Tim Youngren.
Hello, my name is Tim Youngren. I live at 902 West Hawthorne Boulevard in the Pioneer Terrace neighborhood. My family moved to Wheaton just over 7 years ago, and one of the happy surprises about moving here has been the robust park district. We've been so thankful for the park district over the years. My kids have played sports and attended camps, and they've all been wonderful. I've coached 10 softball teams, 3 soccer teams, and 2 basketball teams in that time. We are involved with the park district, and we want the park district to thrive. That being said, we disagree with the parking lot across the street from Cosley Zoo. As others have stated, and as nearly 1,800 signees on the current petition against this expansion can attest, it's the wrong decision for safety, for flood prevention, for property taxes, and for traffic. This does not serve Wheaton residents. What more can we do to communicate that we do not want a parking lot across the street from Cosley or for our sweet zoo to be a major regional attraction? Please, don't forget or overlook the responses about zoo expansion in the 2016 Park District Survey that tell this exact same story. We told you then, and we're asking you to hear us again with the same message. Regarding the zoo's need for additional parking, it's difficult for me to understand. The street in front of my home is some of the best, if not the best, overflow parking for Cosley currently in existence. I work from home almost every day, and the street is empty every day. It's been since Piggy and Elephant visited Cosley a few years ago that there have been more than 2 or 3 cars parked with Cosley visitors on our street. And we're directly across from the zoo. As for what to do with that property east of Gary, I have some alternative ideas. A picnic area with a playground for residents of Wheaton, maybe, with a trail over to Northside Park. A dog park would be good. Sell it as residential properties. It's zoned as residential currently. That would be a zero sum for flooding compared with history. We want to see what is best for Wheaton and continue to see the Park District thrive. We feel like we're on the same team, but we're concerned about the direction the Park District is going with the Cosley Zoo expansion. There's not a need or desire to see it expanded. This is not aligned with with what the residents of Wheaton want. Please do not turn the land across Gary Avenue from Cosley Zoo into a parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Stevenson.
Well, I apologize, I'm not as sophisticated as Sylvester. I don't have slides to show you, but I will pass out some pictures that are on page 3 of the presentation I'm going to give right now to the board members. So I apologize to the rest of you. I'll try to just sort of explain in words. Park board members and Mike Bernard, my name is Angela Stevenson. My husband Steve and I have owned a property at 860 West Hawthorne Boulevard since 1999. We visit the Cosley Zoo and appreciate it as a small zoo for children. When and if we can bring our grandchildren there, we hope it will remain small, quaint, and as natural as possible. I'm here to speak about the parking alternatives. Let's look at the master zoo plan, proposed parking needs, but first, can we put that plan into context? The public, Wheaton Park District, public entity, and the nonprofit Cosley Zoo Foundation have been working in private meetings on a Cosley Zoo master plan dating back to 2015 or before. The costs related to this master plan were not posted on either of their websites. The zoo did post a high-level plan with beautiful pictures and diagrams, hoping to attract 300,000 people per year, but again, with no associated costs. A detailed Cosley Zoo master plan, stamped, approved, January 25, 2017, obviously existed in 2017. However, it was not transparently available in 2017, nor is it posted on either of their websites today. That's 7 years and counting. As Wheaton residents, we had to file a Freedom of Information request to see this plan and to get a look at the projected $49.1 million. That was in 2005 dollars. Obviously, with inflation being crazy, that number is probably significantly higher than that. This is the proposal that would like 150 new parking spaces, primarily, as was mentioned before, for out-of-town visitors. Wheaton Park District has lost its grasp on the realm of its responsibility. You're not serving the region, you're not serving the county of DuPage, you are the Wheaton Park District, and your mission is to serve Wheaton residents. Okay, does the Cosley Zoo in its current form need more parking spaces? The documentation from Cosley said that 137 days a year the zoo parking is full. How does the zoo determine this? By counting visitors or counting cars or people who walked or biked, or who counts the cars? Is there an employee? And how do you know when cars leave or how many visitors were in a car? I just want to know how you came up with 137 days. Because I walk my dog past the parking lot regularly and I rarely see it full. However, there are some days when it's busy and it's full and we don't want to turn away visitors. So what's another cost-effective option? I'm an economics major, so I prioritize effective options, whether I'm spending my money or Wheaton taxpayers' money. So the building of Wheaton Oaks office complex is on the same side of Gary Avenue, directly south of Cosley Zoo. It has everything that the zoo could want: proximity, immediate use, and safety. They have 120 parking spots, plus 15 parking spots on the short road that leads to the property. That short road is right in front of the Wheaton Sports Center. That would be literally steps from the current Cosley Overzoo parking space. The zoo could easily lease 30 spaces immediately. They definitely have that much extra parking. You might even be able to get 50 or more. An estimate of the cost of that extra 30 spaces would be about $22,000 a year. If you did that for 20 years, that would be $440,000. Pretty sweet deal. And that would give Cosley 80 current spaces,
30 spaces at Wheaton Oaks, 40 overflow spaces, for a total of 150 spaces. Fantastic, here we go. So, all these parking spaces exist today. There will be no new stormwater runoff to contend with. It's a win-win. This solution solves Cosley's desire to have more access to parking, the safety issue of not having the children go across the street, no excess traffic congestion, noise, or lighting issues, because we're not going to try to attract 300,000 visitors. We're going to stay the same. No destruction of nature, grass, or trees currently used to soak up stormwater in the floodplain. No additional stormwater runoff that the city of Wheaton has to deal with. Again, Cosley stays the same size, and it saves taxpayers money. The Wheaton Park District levy could even be reduced, so we're at similar levels to Naperville and Glen Ellen. That would be great too. And it meets the desires of Wheaton residents that they expressed in their Wheaton Park District surveys. I believe that if all the facts surrounding this project were made public, going back to when Paula Jones first donated the land for Cosley Zoo, we would reveal more and more reasons why this expansion plan is not suitable for Wheaton and is not an effective use of taxpayer dollars. Board members, please represent us, the residents of Wheaton, who elected you. Thank you for your time.
Kevin Needham.
Good evening. My name is Kevin Needham, and I live at 1311 North Carlton Avenue. As you know, my wife Christy and I have sued to void the intergovernmental agreement between the Park District and the City of Wheaton. We did so because the IGA is fundamentally unfair to the citizens of Wheaton. Regardless of the outcome of our lawsuit, the board should not use the IGA to seek zoning approval from the city for the parking lot expansion plan. But for the IGA, the Park District would have to seek a zoning variation from the City Council under the Wheaton zoning ordinance. The Park District cannot get a variation under the Wheaton zoning ordinance because it cannot satisfy the two conditions it must meet before City Council can even consider a request. First, the Park District cannot establish hardship, which requires it to show it cannot make any other use of the properties. This is obviously not true here. The Park District could build a park on the properties. There are many other permissible uses for the properties for which no variation is required. The Park District will suffer no hardship if it can't build a parking lot. Second, a parking lot would alter the essential character of the area or neighborhood where it would be built. There used to be single-family homes on these properties. Building a lot on them instead would obviously alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The Park District totally ignores what I just said in its parking lot expansion plan update. Instead, it misleadingly asserts that there is no park zoning in Wheaton. First of all, we are talking about a parking lot, not a park here. So whether or not there is any park zoning is irrelevant. Second, under the zoning ordinance, parks must meet the requirements for residential districts in which they are located for the R3 residential district. Thus, the Park District update is just one more example of a smokescreen whoever authored it is trying to create about the Park District's plans. The Park District and the city agreed to the IGA in July of 1998, more than 25 years ago. The Park District had to push hard for the city to accept the IGA. When the city finally accepted it, it did so over the objections of Councilman Eichhoff, who expressed concerns that the Park District would not be required to meet the requirements of the zoning ordinance of the IGA, under the IGA. Councilman Eichhoff's concerns about the IGA have now been realized more than 25 years later. What I find particularly upsetting about the IGA is that the Park District could use to act it in totally contrary to the wishes of the citizens of Wheaton who elect its board. If the Park District nevertheless goes forward and uses the IGA to seek the City Council's approval for the parking lot, such an arrogant act could and should have future political and electoral consequences for the Park District and its board. I thus respectfully ask that this board end this matter tonight by announcing that it will not proceed with the parking lot expansion plan. Thank you.
Ginny Christensen.
I'm Ginny Christensen, and I live at 1145 Wheaton Oaks Drive. I am personally in favor of the parking lot because I drive by Cosley quite a bit, and there are many days that the parking lot is full, and people are always looking for someplace else to go, and there's really no place to go, because you can't park in Wheaton Oaks. I didn't realize that you could park over in the other subdivision over there. But I think it's something that is needed and would be used respectfully, and I think that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Marilyn Moritz.
Hi, my name is Marilyn Moritz, and I live at Wheaton Oaks. And I didn't really intend to speak tonight, I just was signing up. But we had to wait a long time to sign up because this wall of speakers sort of had one person signing up all of them, so we had to wait. And in so waiting and so listening, I had to say I was quite impressed with the organization of the opposition, I would say, since I'm a Crosley Zoo supporter. And I think the plan that I've understood is pretty caring about the way in which they're going to do the parking lot. There would be a big fence, from what I understand, so there wouldn't be some resident having to look at it or endure it that way. But the number of statistics here is just incredible. I mean, the economic concerns and little pointer with the little light from the teacher, and you know, it's very impressive, little buttons, and I understand the lawyer. So you're really dealing with, you know, a very well-organized group here, and it's impressive. I'm from the Twin Cities, lived there for 50 years, and just moved here recently. And I had always been visiting, one of my grandchildren are here in Glen Ellen, and we'd always go to Cosley Zoo. And last Christmas Eve, my daughter came over for my requested dinner one night a month, or one night a month, yes. She has to come to my house, and we have dinner at my house, and I have her all to myself. And so she's agreed to that, and she pays for the dinner. And so we were having that dinner, and I said, let's go over and look at the Cosley lights. And we both agreed and ran over there and went through the zoo at the last, after we'd had dinner and so forth. It was just so wonderful. And we have a great zoo in St. Paul, Como Zoo, and we have another one in Minneapolis, and they are treasures of our cities. And I think that bringing a little bit more room to this and enlarging its program could only be of benefit to everyone. And I know that there's a lot of concern about taxes, but I'm 82, and I pay taxes in Wheaton, and I paid the Welcome to Wheaton tax, which was $1,000, which was kind of surprising. And I don't really go to school or have children that go to school. I do have grandchildren here, and well, they're in Glen Ellen. So I don't really have any reason to support the school district if that's where my only reason, because it isn't supporting me or it isn't benefiting me. But anyway, I appreciate your work and thinking of all the complaints you had to listen to and the insults. I would, good for you to be sitting up there and enjoying this. That's all.
Phyllis Geyer.
I'm Phyllis Geyer. I live at 1202 Wheaton Oaks Drive. My husband and I purchased this property new in 1978. I've been active in conservation during these years in Wheaton, DuPage County, Iowa, and Wisconsin. I'm a member of the Cosley Zoo Foundation Board. Changes have been made to the zoo over the years. Besides making it a fun, safe place to visit, I go there often because I'm close, and I see the good times children and families are having, me included. I am impressed with the care of the animals, the educational and conservation programs promoted by the zoo. I believe the Park District Board has and continues to make positive changes with thoughtful consideration. Cosley Zoo is a part of a park district that enhances living in the Wheaton community. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Edward Sepke.
Edward Sepke, 1043 Oakview Drive in Wheaton Oaks. Try to keep this brief. I attended the September 20th meeting and spoke as a 45-year resident of Wheaton Oaks, which is directly adjacent to Cosley. I supported the parking lot plan as necessary to deal with capacity constraints on numerous days. The coordination with the major upgrade of Gary Avenue in 2024 made the timing especially propitious. Seemed pretty simple and basic. Now appears that the temperature on the issue has risen dramatically. Not only that, but the opponents have seen to conflate the current parking expansion with the conceptual, and I repeat, conceptual, 2019 zoo expansion plan. The only reason I can possibly think of that is that the parking issue alone could not create a sufficiently irate opposition response. Members of the Wheaton Oaks community have been aggressively approached at the Wheaton Sports Center to sign a petition opposing any facet of expansion. They were also told multiple mistruths, the most egregious being that, quote unquote, future zoo expansion would require acquisition of part of Wheaton Oaks. What I would suggest at this point is that the honest issues related to the parking expansion only be addressed in a factual pro and con format. Dispose of the extraneous matters. The Wheaton Park District attempted to do this in an October 9th email. Let's keep this matter honest and on point. The parking lot project directly impacts only a handful of people, but will benefit many more.
Thank you. Elaine Purnell.
My name is Elaine Purnell. I live at 316 North Ellis Avenue, and I've lived in Wheaton for 8 years, but I have gone to Cosley Zoo for many, many more. When I lived in Evanston and I worked in the city, I used to come out here to take my kids and my grandkids to Cosley Zoo. I also live in a city where we have had, I used to live in a city where we've had a lot of conflicts with various things happening in the city, intrusions of the university, of this and that. But you know, it's the accumulation of special places that makes a community really special. And Cosley Zoo is one of those really special places. I've always been amazed when I go there to see how well the animals are cared for, how well the people who come to Cosley Zoo are cared for. I've been a volunteer there at Cosley for the last 5 years. It would be 7 if it wasn't for COVID. And I have to tell you, the number of people that come up to me and say, what a great place this is. I love to bring my kids here. I love to bring my grandkids here. Cosley is special. It is a little gem, but it could be a little bigger gem. And I think that's the thing that's really important to think about here, too. There are a lot of things that Cosley Zoo could offer, not only those who live outside of Wheaton, but those that live inside of Wheaton, if they had the opportunity to do the expansions they've been talking about. I've attended some of the meetings where they have invited people who would be impacted by these changes. And I feel that they've been trying to be as transparent and try to listen to some of the concerns. And I understand that concerns are real, that people have real feelings about those. But I think that the Park District has had to address them, at least from my understanding. So I hope that the City Council will approve this program and let Cosley Zoo grow just as Wheaton as a city has grown. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Can, yep,
Thanks for the help.
you need to write bigger.
I was a doctor for 40 years. Thank you for allowing us to speak here. I just want to talk because, just to put things in perspective. I mean, we moved to Wheaton 30 years ago.
Your address, sir?
Pardon?
Your address, please?
Oh, sorry, it's 484 White Birch Lane in Wheaton. It's unincorporated, but a year after we moved here, we annexed into the Park District, so yes, I pay property taxes to Wheaton Park District. So this does affect me that way too, which is fine. I think the Park District does an amazing job, and Cosley does too. When we were looking for places to live around here, we looked at several suburbs, and I'll tell you, Little Cosley Animal Farm was one of the reasons that we chose Wheaton. Since that time, we raised a small child. My wife and I still, 30 years later, visit on a weekly basis. We both volunteer at the zoo, and actually are contributors to the programs. Having behind-the-scenes experience as a volunteer and being involved with them, I was also a pediatrician for 40 years, okay? So I know a little bit about kids, and also in respect to the person who pulled up a lot of articles from the internet, know a little bit about child safety and education. They do an amazing, amazing job. I mean, just looking at the kids and the programs they do and the interactions, I don't think there's any place around, and I think Wheaton should be really grateful they have a place like this. A lot of places don't. No, I raised a child here. I just have a brand new first grandchild that's a month old, and I guarantee you very soon she's going to be a visitor to Cosley also. But I think Cosley is very, very important. And I think people are losing, I know there's a lot of emotions that come through, a lot of spin on things. I think things the way maybe want to speak is because so much is, I live in facts. I mean, I've done that my whole career, and things that have been said are just not factual. I mean, even tonight, saying that Cosley wants to be the largest zoo in the area. They're landlocked on 5 acres. How much larger are you going to be? Look at the plan. It's a renovation of the plan. And to say that, this is all for outside residents, well, pay attention to what Cosley has done in the past 6 to 7 years. This small, tiny little zoo has become an AZA accredited zoo. And if you don't know how important and how hard it is to get that, then I suggest you go and look and read what they have to do and the standards they're held to. And to say that it should be for Wheaton residents only, there's how many Wheaton residents are there? I mean, there's only a finite level. The fact that you're having people coming from, not only from DuPage County, you're getting from other counties. I see people at the zoo, talk to them, they're from out of state, some from France. I mean, it's actually something that brings people to Wheaton. And nobody can tell me that people who come from out of the borders of Wheaton to visit the zoo, don't visit other things in Wheaton also. The History Museum, Cantini, the restaurants, the shops. I think it's a big draw for that. And I think that people need to be in this perspective that we should be proud of what they've built here. And, in 30 years, even as a visitor, a lot has changed in there. And I'll tell you, I can't think of one improvement that the zoo has made or changes they have made that they have not done in a very thoughtful approach that takes into the conservation, the amazing care for the animals, and the presentation of educational programs. So I wish people would stick with the facts and not. And those are the facts. So, you can think whatever you want, but when you sit there and say that it's on protected land, that's not a fact. You can say a lot of other things you can do. So I hope the board and then also the city council really just approaches this and kind of takes all the emotion and anger and things and try to see that in order for this to proceed and for this is an attraction, and it's no longer belongs just to little downtown Wheaton. It belongs basically to everyone. And to say that it's not financially, well, yeah, you're going to get outside visitors, but surprise, they pay an admission fee, which helps offset some of the costs too. So, and Wheaton residents do not pay. So having outside people come and pay to visit actually is a plus. I mean, I ran my own business for 30 years. So I just take that into consideration, and I hope something works out that's amenable to everybody, but I really think that facts need to be looked at, and everything else needs to be kind of put on the back burner. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jeff Mousseau.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Mousseau. I reside at 25W 700 Flint Creek Road, and I've been a 27-year resident of the Wheaton Park District. I'm here tonight to strongly support the planned parking expansion at the zoo. My family greatly appreciates Cosley Zoo and the value it brings to our community. We have regularly enjoyed visiting its animals, developing holiday traditions there, and watching the once small animal park develop into a world-class zoo with an important conservation mission. We know that Cosley Zoo is one of these special community assets that helps make Wheaton, Wheaton. But we also appreciate how the zoo attracts visitors from beyond Wheaton that help pay for the zoo's expenses through their admission fees so we can all visit it for free. So let me repeat that, so that we can all visit it for free. These families also from beyond Wheaton help to support our city's economy through their visits to local restaurants, grocery stores, the French market. And in fact, I was thinking it's too bad in the economic impact analysis that I know it would be very difficult, but if we could incorporate that number into the return with the zoo, I think that would make the analysis change dramatically. When Cosley Zoo initially shared its master plan with the community nearly 6 years ago, my family and our friends were excited to learn about the Park District's plan for the zoo, including a new rivers exhibit featuring beavers and otters. We appreciate the strong record the Park District has shown with respect to continuing to update and improve facilities and programs available to our community in ways that are respectful to both the residents and nature. The most recent example being the wonderful redevelopment of Memorial Park. Improvements such as these are important to maintaining a strong and vibrant community, and Cosley Zoo is certainly part of that equation. Some people are wondering why the zoo needs to expand its parking, but if you're a parent or grandparent, you have likely tried to visit the zoo on a beautiful day only to find the parking lot full of cars. Unfortunately, this happens well over 100 days every year, and that translates to a lot of unhappy children and families, and more importantly, lost opportunities for kids to connect to nature. There's an old saying that maintaining the status quo actually means you're going backwards. Think of it, if the Park District leaders had decided to keep everything the same, we wouldn't have the amazing parks, community center, swimming pools, and uniquely impactful Cosley Zoo that we all know and love today. Since the zoo's master plan was released, I've been impressed with how the Wheaton Park District has provided opportunities for input from the community and how they have thoughtfully responded to that input. The most recent example of this is the October 9th email released by the Park District that is also available on the Park District website that included a generous reduction in the size of the proposed parking lot in response to concerns of the neighbors. Up to this point, I believe some of the issues related to the parking lot expansion have been misunderstood and, very frankly, misrepresented by some members of the community. After all, we're looking at expanding the parking and improving the existing exhibits over a period of time. We are not looking at developing a second version of Disney World here in Wheaton. In summary, I just want to thank you for your leadership and strongly recommend that you move forward with your plans to expand parking for Cosley Zoo visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie Wachowski.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Julie Wachowski. I'm a 27-year resident of Wheaton, and I currently live at 151 Travers Avenue. I'm a supporter of the zoo because I believe in the mission, and I support the plan for the parking lot. I wanted to share that 25 years ago when my kids were little, it was hard to find parking at the zoo. And when I have mentioned my support and my husband's support of the zoo to our neighbors now near Travers, the first thing they say to me is that it's often difficult to find parking. Two neighbors specifically, one that lives across the street with two young children and another who is a grandfather of two children that live around the street from me. They both have spontaneously reported to me in the last month that they were unable to find parking at the zoo on a weekday afternoon after school, trying to take their kids over there. These are local residents with young children. They're not here to represent themselves here tonight, so I'm speaking on their behalf. There's a real issue with parking at the zoo, and I believe that this plan will help with it. I'm also here to share with you a letter that was written by my friend whose name is Laura Christensen, and she resides here in Wheaton also. Her address is 27 West 071 Loudon Avenue. Her letter was submitted to you all through email, but she asked me to come and read it to the group here tonight. I'm doing a redacted version in order to be respectful of your time because Laura can definitely go on. Dear Mr. Bernard and Board of Commissioners, I am sorry I'm unable to attend the hearing, but I would like to share this letter as part of the public input in favor of the proposed parking plan for Cosley Zoo. My husband Mark and I are 33-year residents of Wheaton and devoted supporters of the Cosley Zoo. We believe the zoo is a vital and integral part of Wheaton. Mark and I raised our 3 children, now in their later 20s and early 30s, going to the zoo regularly. These visits were a part of the fabric of our family life. Because of the important part that the zoo has played in the lives of our family, my husband and I have become financial supporters of the zoo and the expansion plan over the last 5 years. I believe the plans are exciting and will offer even more wonderful reasons to visit this zoo. In addition to my own personal attachment to the zoo and what it has meant to my family, I also appreciate and understand the complexity of getting approval for such a project. I've spent my career working as a professional city planner and landscape architect. I volunteered for 13 years as a City of Wheaton Plan Commissioner member and chair, and later as a commissioner on the Planning and Zoning Board, serving as its president in my last few years. I understand well the need and importance of balancing a property owner's rights, in this case the Wheaton Park District, to develop his or her property, while also protecting the adjacent property's values and addressing the concerns of neighbors. I commend the Park District on the generous compromises you've presented in the most recent parking expansion plan in order to address our neighbors' concerns. Gates for the parking lot, as proposed, are an excellent way to increase security and prevent possible loitering in the lot after business hours. The proposed 6-foot solid wood fence along the parking lot where it abuts existing homes would provide excellent screening of car headlights. As a landscape architect, I recommend the following features be considered for a landscape buffer adjacent to the neighboring homes. A mix of evergreen and deciduous trees that will achieve a mature height taller than the height of the adjacent homes to screen the parking lot view from second-floor windows. Use fast-growing but desirable trees to achieve the desired screening as quickly as possible. Berms along the east side of the parking lot adjacent to the homes, if the topography and drainage allow, would enable new trees to be planted several feet higher than the original grade. Some very positive attributes of the proposed parking expansion plan that the neighboring residents should be reminded about are: there will be no structures on this parking lot that residents will see out their windows. With a 6-foot solid wood fence, berming, generous setbacks, and a dense new landscaping, adjacent homeowners will see little or no headlight spill from cars. Landscaping will provide seasonal interest with fall colors and flowers and birds. Permeable pavers are an excellent technique for slowing and reducing the runoff and increasing the water filtration before water leaves the parking lot site. In summary, the Park District's generous compromise reducing the number of proposed parking spaces by nearly half and creating landscaping buffers between the parking lot and existing homes is a commendable way to address the concerns of the existing homeowners adjacent to the property. This badly needed additional parking will enable the Park District to meet the already inadequate parking space numbers. Cosley Zoo is such a treasure for Wheaton Park District members and Wheaton residents. I commend the Park District's plan to address the parking shortage for Cosley Zoo and to plan to meet the growing needs of the zoo as an exciting long-range expansion and new program offerings unfold. Sincerely, Laura Christensen of Loudon Avenue in Wheaton. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Akins.
Good evening, and thank you for the public hearing. My name is Robert Akins. I live at 151 Travers Avenue in Wheaton. Me and my wife have lived there for 27 years, or lived in Wheaton for 27 years. I think I'll keep this brief. Cosley Zoo is just a very special thing for the residents of Wheaton. So many children enjoy it. I think it's a great prize to have. And they're doing such a wonderful job that we need to have, that people are actually getting turned away because they can't park. So there's been a solution developed to address that problem and allow more people to use the Cosley Zoo and not turn people away, including residents of Wheaton. And I commend the Park District and the board working together to develop a solution that's reasonable. So I would say that as someone who's attended the zoo and met the zoo staff, that it's pretty hard for me to imagine them not doing something that isn't in harmony with the area and with nature. That's been a whole part of their goal. So I trust that a good job has been done in designing the parking lot. I've seen the iterations of the design going through. And so I would urge the board to go forward with the design that has been proposed and to go ahead with the parking lot for the zoo. Thank you.
Thank you. Minette Voigt.
Hi, my name is Minette Vogt, and I live at 1639 Wadham Place, and I'm actually speaking here in support of an inclusive bathroom policy for transgender individuals in Wheaton. I'm not thrilled to be speaking here for the third time, although I thought it would be a lot fewer people. And I am obviously pleading the case that I should be able to use the women's restroom. It's difficult to appeal by humanity to a town that I've lived in my entire life and that I've trusted to raise myself, that I've chosen to come back to after college. And if this is overturned, that's going to make it a lot more difficult to live in Wheaton and to recommend that my friends also explore Wheaton, because I genuinely believe this town is great. As a trans person in Wheaton, I've grown up here. I've been ostracized much like every other trans person has, and I've spoken here 3 times now, this being the 3rd. I provide statistics on transgender bathroom assault in Wheaton in May, in which I was unable to find any cases of a transgender person assaulting a cisgender person in a bathroom, male or female. And I want to talk about how this being overturned could possibly affect my future in Wheaton and just my future walking through life. I have always tried to walk through the world with the idea that most people are good, but I think it would be difficult to blame myself if that was somewhat tainted or disturbed after having the words unstable, gender-confused individual written about me in a newsletter associated with Jeannie Ives. And I'm sorry. I love Wheaton too much to give it up to bigotry. gay marriage in America wasn't legal until I was 11 years old. And when it feels like your own home is so viscerally against you, it hurts. And I will be damned if I allow transgender Wheaton youth to feel the same way that I felt growing up as a gay person in America. I don't want Wheaton to be some trans kid's first bully. It becomes hard for me to see where other people are coming from when their points come across as so unresearched and just seem like a bunch of jargon coming together to make an incoherent point. And I genuinely hope that Wheaton makes the correct decision and goes with the science, the statistics, and everything having to do with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Wasserman.
Hi, my name is Catherine Wasserman. I live at 1639 Wadham Place. I am her mom. I've been up here and spoken to you a couple times now on the issue of the inclusive bathroom and locker room policy, so I don't really have a whole lot else to say. I'm here today really just to thank you for having the policy. It's true that you don't really have a choice since 2021. It's been Illinois law that has granted individuals the right to use the bathroom consistent with their gender identity. But in addition to the fact that it's the law, it's also the right thing to do. And I just want to thank you for doing the right thing and for making Wheaton Park District facilities welcoming spaces for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you. Robert Stozek.
Hi, my name is Bob Stozek. I live at 1130 Champion Forest Court. I'm adjacent to the properties behind the Sports Center and the Cosley Zoo. I don't think anybody in this room would challenge the value of Cosley Zoo. That's not the issue. The issue here is the impacts of these changes that are proposed. I've lived there on Champion Forest for over 35 years now, and I've seen over that time the increased traffic flow on Gary Avenue, a street that wasn't designed for that kind of traffic in the first place and is just getting worse year by year. It's getting more and more crowded. At least 3 times a day now, there's enough traffic there to create significant backups. Expansion of the zoo, my biggest concerns are really traffic and safety with any expansion of the zoo. The increased traffic there is going to be problematic. We already have we have this high school, we have the sports center, and we have a lot of commuter traffic that takes that route. And I think it's problematic to not have a solution here that aggravates that situation. Putting a street light there, I think, was even going to be a bigger aggravation because we already have backup problems with the existing configuration of that. And I don't think there's enough, despite any kind of rework of that road, I don't think there's enough space there to rework it in a way that's going to be able to handle any significant increases in traffic. Now, I think that said, and I think there's a safety issue as well with, as many people have mentioned here, with people crossing the street, particularly children crossing that street, irregardless of what kind of facilities and lights are provided there for that traffic. I think the board maybe lastly should also you really looked at other alternatives. It's my understanding that you own the property immediately south of the Cosley Zoo as well. Have you considered completely repurposing that space for additional parking for the zoo and connecting it to the existing parking area as an alternative and finding other uses for that or other places for the office space, for example, just to avoid the kind of problems that we can have in the neighborhood. As I said, I've seen significant traffic issues there, and I think they're only going to get worse with expanded people coming to the Cosley Zoo. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Mindy P. I don't really understand what you've written here.
I wrote that I'm unable to share my address because my family has also been the target of a male hate campaign by a previous elected official of Wheaton.
Oh, okay. So you're unable to share your address.
South
That-
side near Donata. Yes, I will not share my
Okay, that's fine.
publicly. Okay, thank you so much. I'm here just to thank you all for your inclusive restroom policy. It means a lot to your community members. It means a lot to the LGBTQIA community, both in Wheaton and in Illinois and across the country, and to all of our allies. And oftentimes people are not so quick to praise, so that's why I'm here, to thank you for doing the right thing. Human beings are quick to criticize, as we heard a lot of tonight, and I'm sorry that your time and resources have been taken up hearing a lot of criticism tonight, and I'm here just to give you some praise, so thank you.
Thank you. I think it's Jamie, no last name, on Elm. What was your,
Sorry, Jamie Safransky. I live at 815 West Elm Street.
thank you.
I'm here in support of the Cosley Zoo Foundation expansion plan. The first thing I want to say is there are, according to the 2020 census, there are close to 54,000 residents in Wheaton. And I appreciate people being upset, but there are 54,000, almost 54,000 people that live here. First, I believe Cosley, the Park District, and the foundation are for the betterment of the community as a whole. And I want to say that again, as a whole. I have been a Wheaton resident for more than 17 years, and I know that because I moved here when I was 8 months pregnant with my first child, and he will be 17 in about 3 weeks. Yeah, God help me, it was terrible. When it became clear that I needed to stay home and be a stay-at-home mom, we went to one income. As a one-income household and a stay-at-home mom and two very, very busy boys, I do understand about boys. I was looking for things to do that would enrich my children's lives. The parks are wonderful, but going somewhere like Brookfield Zoo is extremely expensive when you are on one income. Cosley Zoo is free to all residents. Yes, we do pay for it in our property taxes, but it costs us nothing to go there. I found that place in Cosley. Sorry. I have seen the ideas of the expansion of Cosley Zoo, and I will say I have a degree in zoology and chemistry, and it makes me excited, very, very excited, that these opportunities will be there for our children. And hopefully someday I will be able to bring my grandchildren here, because I'm not that far away. I almost have a 17-year-old, but not too soon. So it is exciting to know that Cosley will continue to grow responsibly in a way that benefits the community as a whole. As a whole. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. And last is Susan Varsek.
Hello, good evening. My name is Susan Varsak. I live at 520 North Main Street in Wheaton. I'm a mom of 3 young children and a volunteer on the Cosley Foundation Board. Thank you, Park Board Commissioners, for your time. I also wanted to thank you for your thoughtful October 9th update piece, which shows a reduction in the size of the proposed parking lot. This 40% reduction in the number of spots, I think, is a good idea and a way to show that you are listening You are trying to retain green space on the residential lots on the east side of Gary and decrease, as we heard the really good ideas by the city planner whose letter was read, decrease the impact to the people who are living nearby. I also urge you to remember that investing in Cosley is a good idea. Now, if we were at home and I was having this discussion with my husband, he would say, because it was your idea? And I would say, about investing in Cosley? Obviously not. The idea to invest in Cosley dates back nearly 50 years to the Wheaton Park District. Since then, the Wheaton Park District, the Wheaton community, and donors who love the zoo have slowly and steadily invested in Cosley to help it grow from what it started, which was a roadside animal park, to a nationally accredited small zoo, as it is today. That type of slow and steady investment pays dividends in the form of quality of life for our community, education programs for our children, and care of the natural world as people go forth from their experiences at Cosley. And to focus on tonight's issue, I think that solving Cosley's current parking issue is a good idea. I take my kids to summer camp at Cosley, and often you can't find a spot. It is clearly, you can see with your eyes, it's a problem. It needs to be solved. And in closing, I urge you to be confident in your investment in Cosley. Please clarify how you view future development of Cosley. And my understanding is that it is with the same steady hand with which the Park District has guided Cosley for the past 50 years. But please, just remember that a future where Cosley has stagnated due to lack of investment is a true loss for Wheaton. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody need a break?
Not me.
Not me.
Okay.
We're good.
So we do have some new business items before we get to the board discussion item on Cosley. So let's try to move those through as quickly as we can.
Question on the public comments.
Yes.
I have a neighbor who sent in a public comment via email that I thought if you emailed it in advance, it would be read by.
Yeah, the Park District does not currently have a policy to read. I mean, we could get 100 letters that we would have to read into the record. So
You just allowed it via this other person.
somebody came and read it. If somebody has that letter and
I have
wants
the
to,
letter.
oh, then be my guest. You are more than
I have
welcome
copies
to
of the
read it.
letter. So here's copies for all
Yep.
of you of the letter. Thank you for allowing that.
Your name and address, please?
Do you want me to just give the person's name and address that I'm
Yeah,
reading it for?
yeah.
Yeah.
And yours that you're reading it for him, that's fine. You already spoke tonight, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah, just, we have it. Just mark
Okay.
that she read.
Okay. So this is Christopher Gould. He lives at Wheaton Oaks Townhomes, which is 945 Wheaton Oaks Drive. He explains that he's traveling tonight, and for that reason he can't come. He said, I'm hoping that the rescheduled meeting from the regular third Wednesday was for a reasonable reason and not a nefarious attempt to minimize attendance, which is a well-known strategy. Because he couldn't find any reason why this meeting was moved publicly via any document or video. He said, please consider my opinion and have it be read into the record. And please forward this email to co-managers of the Lincoln Marsh, whom I understand to be DuPage Forest in the DuPage Forest Preserve District. I remain unclear on the delineation of legal responsibility. Also, please, I copied the CUSD 200, since the two schools are located within blocks of this project, and it will dramatically increase traffic. Chris has been a homeowner at Wheaton Oaks since 2012. He says, I have praised the Cosley Zoo since 1996 when I started bringing my children, and I hope to bring my grandchildren in the future. However, the plans of the Park District that have been published are not appropriate for a small, tight neighborhood within which we live. The loss of green space for a large parking lot is not appropriate. The Park District and the village's plans to annex the property will lead to a change in the neighborhood from a quiet subdivision next to the zoo to an area laden with traffic by visitors from the website to the most popular attraction in DuPage County. Congestion, air and noise pollution, and destruction of the natural meadow will result in reduced property values. In addition, many would say that zoos are on a decline due to the public's belief that it is cruel to keep animals in cages for viewing pleasure of people. In all the master plan materials that we have seen from the Park District, there is no reference to the improvements for the animals, but lots of improvements for the events, weddings, and parties for the people. The National Environmental Policy Act assessment has not been provided if it has actually been done. We suspect that it would reflect the compromising of the health of migratory birds and national habitat so revered within the Lincoln Marsh, in addition to the risk of stormwater management issues affiliated with a huge lot of pavement or pavers. DuPage Forest Preserve District personnel emailed him specifically to say that they have not received any such documentation from the Wheaton Park District concerning that you had done a national environmental policy assessment. Lastly, the original benefactor that provided the land for Cosley Zoo, Paula Jones, specifically directed that the land was donated for the area not to be developed beyond a small zoo. Annexation will lead the Park District forward with their developmental plans to grow the small zoo's visitor count from 54,000 in 2010 to 300,000 visitors, mostly from outside of Wheaton. As board members, please vote against the use of this land for a parking lot and for the master plan of the Park District. And to be clear in communication to residents that the Park District has amended their plans for Cosley Zoo. By the way, I walked my dog around during last night's Spooktacular, a fantastic and popular event, at 7 o'clock, which was prime time, and there remained open parking spaces, including the lot that is underutilized around the Park District building at 855 Prairie Avenue. I thank you for your time of volunteering to serve Wheaton and the Park District.
Thank you. All right.
Consent agenda, sir?
Yep, let's move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion.
I will move to approve the consent agenda, items A, B, and C, starting with A, approval of the disbursements totaling $1,381,695.99 for the period beginning September 13, 2023, and ending October 17, 2023. B, approval of the disbursement totaling $497,595.85 for the period beginning September 13, 2023, and ending September 17, 2023. And finally, C, approval of the regular meeting minutes of September 20, 2023.
Second.
We had a motion by me, a second by Fry. Any questions or comments? Mike, take the rolls, please.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry? Yes. Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. Moving on to new business, item number 1, an easement agreement with the sanitary district.
I move to approve the addendum to an easement agreement with the Wheaton Sanitary Park District, Wheaton Sanitary District for pedestrian bicycle path access to Atten Park.
Second.
So we had a motion by Pacharich and a second by Fry. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment. I think it's important to note that the Murfield Estates Homeowners Association will be, through this agreement, assuming responsibility for a maintenance of a section of that fence.
That's correct.
Okay. The fence or the path?
The fence. The path maintenance will remain our responsibility.
All right. Any other questions or comment? Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry? Yes. Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business, item number 2, the Mary Lubko Center roof replacement project. We have a change order.
I move to approve change order number 1 from Roofmaster Metal Masters in the amount of $1,295.
Second.
So we have a motion by Vires, a second by me. Does anybody have any questions on that change order? No, that's a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. New business, item number 3, ordinance 2023-02.
Move to approve ordinance 2023-02, approving the disposal and sale of personal property owned by the Wheaton Park District as delineated in the meeting packet.
Second.
So we have a motion by me and a second by Barrett. Anybody have any questions or comments on what's being disposed?
Nope.
Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Vires?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item number 4, the Arrowhead Golf Club food supply bidding and results.
I move to approve the bids for the following products, vendors, costs, and pricing terms as presented. Dairy, Get Fresh, $130,146. Commodity pricing 1 year. Seafood, Fortune Foods, $124,059. Commodity pricing 1 year. Poultry, Consumers Meat, $76,400. Commodity pricing 1 year. Meat, Consumers Meat, $328,499. Fixed pricing 1 year. Bread, Toronto Baking, $125,900. Fixed pricing 1 year. General Frozen, Cisco Chicago, $171,976. Fixed pricing 1 year. Dry Goods, Cisco Chicago, $152,767. Fixed pricing 1 year. Paper Disposables, Cisco Chicago, $56,669. Fixed pricing 1 year. Produce, Get Fresh, $164,798. Fixed and commodity pricing 1 year. Beverages, Cisco Chicago, $27,270. Fixed pricing 1 year.
Second.
So we have a motion by Pacharich and a second by Vires, whose staff would be Andy, if anybody has any questions. Andy's here. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Good job, Andy.
Andy, did we, when this came up at subcommittee, we talked about looking at how the commodity pricing versus the fixed pricing worked out. Did you guys have a chance to look at that yet at all, or is that something we can get as a report later on?
Yes, well, something we can put together later on in the year.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Nobody else has any questions? Then Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Me?
Yes.
Commissioner Fry?
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
Commissioner Vires?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes. New business item number 5, the 2024 fees for Rice and Northside Pool.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024 fee proposal for pool membership and daily fees as presented. Season, individual resident, 115, non-resident, 164. Season, each additional family member resident, $55, non-resident, $74. Season, senior individual, 60+, resident 100, non-resident 142. Senior season couple, 60+, resident 143, non-resident 203. Daily adult, resident 1175 Rice, resident 1125 Northside. Daily adult non-resident at Rice, $16. Non-resident Northside, $15.25. Daily child, 217 years of age and senior 60+, resident $8.50 for Rice, resident Northside $8. Daily child, 217 and senior 60+, non-resident $11.25 at Rice, $10.50 at Northside. 6 visit guest booklet, $63. 20 visit guest booklet, $210.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion by Fry and a second by Barrett. And who's here tonight, Dan?
Yep.
Does anybody have any questions for Dan?
Nope.
No.
Dan, the only question I had that people might be wondering, what's about the average the increase was?
$1 per pass, $1 for a daily fish.
$1 for a daily, and $5 for a season pass. Okay, and you guys did a study to see how our rates compared with other villages, and we're like right in the middle?
Absolutely. With the season rate, and if we offer our discounts, we drop down to
Oh, and we have the early bird sales and stuff like that where people can get it. So people should look on the website for the sales if they want to get it at a lower rate than these, correct? Correct, sir. Okay. Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
No. Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Me.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. New business item 6, the Park Plus Fitness Center fees for 2024.
I'd move to approve the 2024 fee proposal for Parks Plus Fitness Center for 2024 for memberships, group fitness, and personal training as presented and as identified in the meeting packet. Second.
Second. All right, so these are, do we need to read these in?
They're numerous. What we can state is that within the packet, which is available online and was reviewed at our subcommittee meeting 2 weeks ago, it would be in the relevant report for the fitness center fees. Charts A and Charts D would outline the membership and group fitness fees as well as the personal training fees beginning January 1.
Otherwise, there's, okay. So it's as printed in the agenda, or in the board packet. Do I have a second?
Second.
It was.
Oh, we had. All right, Mike, take the roll.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Me.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. Item 7, Resolution 23-09. Need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution, excuse me, 2023-09, authorizing the estimate of the annual aggregate levy in compliance with the truth and taxation law.
Second.
So we have a motion by Fry and a second by me.
Me.
Anybody have any questions for staff on that?
Nope.
No? Mike, take the roll, please.
Commissioner Vyers.
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Me.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes. New business item number 8, the 2024 Budget and Appropriation Ordinance Draft.
I move to place the 2024 budget and appropriation ordinance draft and related reports on 30-day public inspection.
Second.
So we have a motion by Byers and a second by Fry. And Mike, where can these be found since they're going on public display?
They will be on our website. We will have postings with the specific address at all of our facilities, and the draft of the budget and appropriation ordinance and related reports will be available at our offices as well as the public library, beginning tomorrow.
All right. New business item number 9, the Cosley Zoo Parking Expansion Project. This is listed as a discussion item, so no action can be taken tonight. What we've done is we've asked staff to come to the board and run through the project with everybody so you can hear. You've heard from the outside, now you're going to get to hear from staff as to what this project entails. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions, but it's not an action item, so we can't vote on anything tonight. All right, so Mike, it's up to you.
Oh, on the place on public display. I guess we need a roll call on that, on the place of the ordinance on
okay.
public display. Thanks for, good catch.
Thanks. Mike, take the roll on the ordinance.
Commissioner Vyers. I've never done it from this side before.
Yes.
Commissioner Vyers, Commissioner Pacharich.
Yes.
Commissioner Me.
Yes.
Commissioner Fry.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
President Kelly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this evening, we've been asked to provide an update on where things stand related to the parking lot expansion project. And we will roll through a series of speakers this evening. Matt Safransky, the president of the Cosley Foundation, will kick things off. Sue Walgren, the director of Cosley Zoo, will talk about the master plan as well as the need for additional parking. I will review the Cosley's operating budget, finances, and related property tax support. Rob Spurl, our Director of Parks and Planning, will review the history of the related property acquisitions as well as a zoning issue. Sean Benson, our consultant and engineer from White Engineering, will review many aspects concerning the wetlands issue, the issue related to the floodplain and floodway, and we'll have various exhibits and summaries related to those items, including the issue related to the currently designed planting buffer in adjacency to neighboring properties. And then I will return to review the balance of what have been articulated. Many we've heard tonight reiterated of the concerns and the Park District's responses. Many of those will be a repeat of what has already been posted, but in the interest of this public meeting and putting those concerns and responses on the public record, we will review those again this evening. So without further ado, I will introduce Matt Safransky, President of the Cosley Foundation Board, to lead us off.
Hey, Matt, just give me a second before you start, okay? So is it the board's preference to go through the whole presentation first, and then we can bring speakers back up to ask questions rather than interrupting each speaker? Will that work?
By me.
Okay, so we'll ask questions at the end, and we'll let you go through the whole thing then. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, good evening, and thank you. Many of you already know. And for those I don't, I'm Matt Safransky, a longtime Wheaton resident. As Mike mentioned, a volunteer board member and president of the Cosley Zoo Foundation. This independent, non-profit organization supports the zoo by fundraising through various events and donor outreach. I personally support Cosley because, as my wife mentioned, but I grew up going to Cosley, but my wife and I moved to Wheaton 17 years ago. We brought our sons there. It has a special place in our heart. But that's not the only reason why I support Cosley. It's also the mission and the zoo's leadership. Sue Walgren and Mike Bernard and the Greater Park District organization is top-notch. Tonight, I want to thank the Wheaton Park District Board of Commissioners for inviting me to be part of this presentation to discuss the Foundation's perspective on the parking lot project. We all know at this point that Cosley has a parking problem. As you've heard, that the current 80-spot lot reaches capacity over a third of the year. We'll have more details on that in the presentation. Cosley also has a space problem. It's constrained. This was identified over the past decade by zoo leadership that actually predates my time on the foundation. Very wisely so, the park board and the foundation realized that in order to maintain its ability to serve the Wheaton community and to grow steadily and slowly like it has done throughout its entire history, it needed more space. To this end, years ago, the Park District Board and the foundation purchased land adjacent to the zoo across Gary Avenue. And subsequently, the Cosley Foundation engaged a consultant to help us envision what a modern zoo may look like. Out of that came the master plan. It was a creative concept. These plans are meant to create excitement, spur creative thought. This is not a blueprint for future construction. I'm actually might have to apologize a little bit that there's probably not going to be a bison or a restaurant and bar or even a wedding chapel for those who were hoping one was going to be there. We only want to pair this creative vision that was in the plan with what's core to Cosley. It's a community zoo. Its unique character, commitment to conservation and education, its history of responsible development. So I look forward to Cosley's future and certainly imagine an exciting new exhibit that prioritizes animal welfare and maintains AZA standards. But I'm absolutely committed to shepherding the future to retain Cosley's character. We neither want nor aspire to be a large zoo like Brookfield or Lincoln Park. We want Cosley to be successful. Just like anything worthwhile, success must be supported by attention, commitment, and investment. In this way, Cosley will be preserved for Wheaton generations to come, which brings me right back to parking, the first step. We need to solve Cosley's current parking problem and create space for the future. Over the next several weeks, this park board will finalize this plan, and please know that we are thinking through this to come up with the best solution. We are confident the community loves Cosley. We are committed to Cosley being the treasure of Wheaton that it is. The Park District has a long history of being a good neighbor and a good partner to this foundation and doing right by the Wheaton community. This project will be no different. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hello. You get to hear some more. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Susan Waldgren, Director of Cosley Zoo. I'd like to delve a little bit more to what Matt was starting to talk about with parking. Since first collecting visitor data beginning in mid-2011, Cosley Zoo has consistently experienced an average of 137 days each year where we are unable to accommodate visitors to the zoo. Despite several attempts over a long period of time to rectify the situation, including enlarging the lot, redesigning the lot, adding use of the adjacent office building on weekends, and providing staff parking outside of the lot, I can attest after many, many years of personally experiencing parking issues that this situation still exists and needs to be resolved. Turning people away is not conducive to our mission, as it reduces our ability to share important conservation learning opportunities with a wider audience. On days when the zoo's parking lot cannot accommodate the number of visitors, it is not uncommon for traffic to back up onto Gary Avenue while people wait for an open parking space. This not only creates frustration for guests and people traveling along Gary Avenue, but also poses a potential safety risk as people stop on and block the roadway. Over the past 49 years, the zoo has grown from a roadside attraction to a facility that is nationally accredited as being amongst the top 10% of zoos and aquariums in North America. This is because we meet the world's highest standards of animal care, participate in conservation initiatives, offer diverse, high-quality educational programs, and perform at the highest level in all areas of our operation. We are so honored to maintain these high standards and offer a wonderful facility that our community can be very proud of. An essential component of providing the community with a quality facility is our eye to continued growth, keeping up with the changing needs of our guests and our animals. This growth does not mean larger. It means doing things better. The zoo needs to prepare for a future in which we can continue to connect people with animals and share important conservation messaging. As the world experiences loss of species at an unprecedented rate, it is critical that Cosley Zoo is positioned to provide affordable, accessible, up-close experiences that help to develop empathy or caring for animals and nature. Empathy that will inspire future conservationists and changes in behavior to help make our community a better and healthier place to live, work, and play. But in order to accomplish this, we first need to be accessible. We need more parking, or else none of this happens, and our ability to create connections between people and animals will be severely diminished in a time when creating those connections and empathy for animals and nature is imperative. So moving on a little bit to the general master plan, first I'd like to start with the basics. What is a master plan? A master plan is a dynamic, long-term plan that provides a vision to guide future development. It is a general concept of where we want to go. It is a living document designed to be carried out over 20 to 30 years. A master plan is not a construction document. It does not include specific design decisions or details. It is not a static document, as it continues to evolve and change as we move forward. Master plans are essential to the long-term success of zoos, or really for that matter, any business or entity, as they provide a compass to keep us on track for the future. The master plan provides direction to accomplish goals and puts us on the path to create more enjoyable, interactive, and rich experiences for our guests and our animals for generations to come. Master plans are particularly important to zoos as the purposes and audiences of zoos are diverse, funding and support are unpredictable, and the goals of a zoo are long-term. These inherent challenges require that the zoo make and carry out appropriate decisions today to ensure success and relevance in the future. Having a master plan in place supports the coordinated, and as people have said already, slow but steady growth of the zoo's facilities and functions, and helps to avoid ad hoc development, which can lead to wasted time and funds. The plan also keeps us on track to effectively deal with ever-increasing regulatory changes from various agencies and organizations to ensure the best care of our animal residents. In short, the master plan provides a vision for a coherent, site-specific, unique institution that will continue to meet the changing needs of our community, our guests, and our animals, and help us to accomplish our mission, which is to create connections between people and animals that will inspire lifelong conservation of the natural world, which is certainly something that I hope is very important to all of us that are here in this room tonight. So a little more specific about the development of our plan. The zoo's master plan was completed by Torrey Design Consortium, who has more than 40 years of experience in creating zoo and aquarium master plans. All of their plans, when implemented, have been financially sustainable and eagerly welcomed by their communities. The development of the Cosley Zoo plan was a thoughtful and collaborative effort, including staff from Torrey Design Consortium, the Zoo, Park District, and Cosley Foundation board members. Beginning in 2017, the Park District and Cosley Foundation shared the plan with our community, starting with a public rollout at the zoo's popular Cosley Zoo on Corked wine event, which was attended by 450 guests that year. We went on to share more details of the plan with our surrounding neighbors by being available for and engaging them in one-on-one conversations, special meetings, and events such as Neighbor Night, which took place in 2018, 2019, and after a hiatus due to COVID, again in 2023. We also discussed the plans with neighbors who attended a hearing in March 2018 regarding the demolition of a home on future parking site. In addition, the zoo eagerly shared their exciting vision by placing multiple large 3-foot by 6-foot signs throughout the zoo that were installed in 2017 and remained on site into 2023. The zoo also added master plan information to the zoo's website in September 2017, which is still available today. While a master plan is a vision and not a detailed document, there are some things I can tell you that will happen as we develop and implement the plan over the next 2 to 3 decades. First, the culture or feel, if you will, of Cosley Zoo will not change. The affordable, accessible, small, friendly, up-close experiential nature of Cosley Zoo, which you all say you love, will remain, as these are the attributes that make this community asset so very special. Cosley Zoo has never been a static entity. It has grown slowly and steadily over the past 49 years, and that growth has enabled it to continue to serve Wheaton. And finally, let me be very clear, we are not expanding the footprint of the zoo. Once we move parking to the east side of Gary Avenue, we will redevelop the current parking lot into an exhibit, but we will not be going beyond that footprint. And then lastly, this slide just illustrates the daily parking lot data collected at the zoo for the past almost 8 years. This data clearly demonstrates a need for additional parking when you consider the number of days that we must sadly turn away would-be visitors. Mike?
Excuse me. So I think during this presentation, you know, I'm thinking that applauding everyone that comes up and talks is really kind of inappropriate for what we're doing right here. So I'd like this to go forward without the applause, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I'll just take a few moments and review the Cosley's operating budget, revenues, expenditures, and tax revenues of support. Rob? As you can see, and was actually explained earlier by one of our speakers, the zoo's revenues are comprised of a combination of charges for services and a portion of the Park District's property taxes. In the 2023 budget, just over $1 million in property taxes were allocated to the zoo's operating formula. You can see charges for services, rentals, and product sales are slightly about $650,000, with another approximate $90,000 coming from operating grants and donations, which are separate from capital project grants and donations, and then, of course, a little bit of interest income there, for a total revenue picture in 2023 of $1.8 million. Your expenses, primarily, as in most human service delivery organizations, are coming from salaries and wages. All of our products are created by human beings, so we need to have a significant amount of our budget allocated to meeting those expenses. A little under $1.2 million will be spent on zoo salaries and wages in 2023. Contractual services, about $372,000, supplies, $250,000, and other charges, about $76,000. Move forward, please, Rob. On the subject of the property tax investment on an annual basis in the zoo, we provided a look back to 2006 of the zoo, of the property tax revenue of the entire aggregate levy that the Park District has, levies against the property of the taxpayers. In 2006, that property tax allocation was just under $800,000, dropped a little bit in 7, and you can see it increases slightly incrementally on an annual basis up to what the property tax in 2022, which is monies received for the 2023 operating fiscal year, was just over $1 million. Those increases are all within, actually below, what the annual CPI for those years were. So all of those increases were within the CPI. There's been a concern articulated, whether in the form of petitions or public comment or signs in yards, that the Cosley parking lot expansion and possibly, the master plan concepts, if they come to fruition, will increase property taxes. The fact is this: the only way your aggregate property tax increases beyond the CPI index or 5%, whichever is less, due to the property tax extension limitation law, otherwise known as the tax cap, the only way property taxes go up for Wheaton Park District residents beyond that CPI is if there's a referendum and the voters approve it. As far as the subsidy from property taxes are concerned, it is not unique that park districts or this park district has a property tax subsidy for its operations. A great example of where another situation like this occurs is within our pool operations, which was discussed earlier this evening. Our pools are subsidized. We currently have a goal of a subsidy of not to exceed, this is an internal goal, certainly not a board policy, and what we strive to achieve as operators, of 20%. And our pool operations are in the vicinity of just over $1 million. Now, those pool operations have carried a subsidy of anywhere from 15 to 20% of property tax dollars for as long as I've been here, which is coming up on 17 years. And the difference between the pools and the zoo is the pools have an environment whereby we also charge residents to use those services. We certainly charge residents less than we charge non-residents, but there is a charge nonetheless. The pools, so in comparison, the zoo's operating subsidy for a 363-day-a-year operation is in the vicinity of, I believe it's 65%. The pool subsidy is in the vicinity of 20%. However, the pools are open between 65 and 85 days a year. The zoo is open 363 days a year, and the zoo is free for all Park District tax-paying residents, as opposed to those slight charges that are passed on to residents and non-residents for our pool operations. So I thought that comparison was relevant as it relates to the property tax subsidy. That's all I have on our operating budget and our property tax allocation. Rob Spurl, our Director of Parks and Planning, will now speak about the property acquisitions that have taken place over the last several decades with the intent of meeting this need of improving visitor access. Rob?
So you've heard from a number of people tonight that parking has been a problem for over 25 years, and staff certainly feels that way. As homes have, across the street have become available, the Wheaton Park District and the Cosley Foundation have purchased those to hold for future parking expansion. So 1998, this is the aerial of what the area across the street had looked like. We owned a couple of those properties here, so there were 2 homes in the area. One of our previous zoo directors had lived in one of those, sort of on site to be available for the animals as needed. And the other parcels that we are talking about tonight, where the parking lot will be located, did have homes on them. And 3 of them had actually been subdivided for sale as smaller lots than some of the other ones there. So the first house that we had, 1998, is referred to as the Thompson property. That's the one that's the furthest south. And you will see that that had been developed. It had a fairly large driveway there. It had the home itself. It had an in-ground pool in the back, and it had a 2-story garage. This little sketch of what that property had looked like showed that this was kind of the high ground, and if it wasn't impermeable surface, it was mowed turf. And then this little bit here indicates that there was a drop-off to what they had mowed out here as well, but then, of course, what they indicated is the marshy area. And our engineer is going to get into a little bit more of a discussion of what that area is. Some of the photos that we had, again, at the time that we had purchased it, was boarded up, was not looking very good, so certainly not like we had today. The higher ground, actually, if I could just back up a second, it obviously doesn't look like what it looks like today. We had used this higher area, which was outside of the floodplain where the home was, to provide detention, which we owed as a result of the 1995 renovations of Northside Pool. So part of the reason that we had worked with the city, and we continue to work with the city, is that, you know, they make sure that all of the development that we do does not burden the stormwater problem, that projects that we take on improve it. So we had owed them some detention from that, and we'd said we're intending to make the improvements to the Northside Park, which, you know, eventually occurred in 2010, but to clear that debt that we had with them, this area was actually excavated to create the detention outside of the floodplain that we have there today. So that is not considered designated wetland right now, because all of that was created and planted by us. So again, this is what those homes looked like at the time, the Thompson property in particular in 1998. There's the 2-story garage that was adjacent to the in-ground pool, and much of that property was fenced as well. So that fence, you know, in the lower half was actually likely within the floodplain, which was not a good thing. The middle property that we have here is the Lanzarote property. Again, designated by the previous owner. So that was the home that looked like there. Again, that was a sale that would, you know, had come up, and you know, we took that opportunity to purchase it. The final property that we had most recently was the Williams property, and this was in 2017. This property had been vacant for several years, and it was not heated during the winter. The pipes froze. There was a flood that destroyed much of the interior of that home. When we finally purchased it, the back entrance, you kind of walked in and you had to kind of bang on the walls a little bit, because the raccoons that were living in there, you wanted to give them a chance to sort of get out of the way for you. So it was a nice home from the exterior. At one time, it was a very nice home. When we purchased it, it was not. So some of the uses that we had for the east side of the Gary Avenue, again, I talked about the former zoo director that lived on site. We had maintenance staff that lived there as well. We knew we needed additional space. We constructed the 2-story storage barn that is still on site over there. We created the staff parking because, again, Parking had been an issue for a long time, so by taking staff, moving them across the street where, you know, they could leave their cars all day, was a good idea at that time. We created the Animal Welcome Center, which was a requirement of the AZA to be able to keep the rest of the animals within the zoo safe as they brought in new animals or brought them off-site for education. And then, of course, we had occasional special event parking that we've used across the street, but primarily the use was to accommodate our future parking expansion. So I want to address one of the concerns that the property is not zoned for the proposed use. As you know, mentioned earlier, there is no park zoning within Wheaton. The majority of parcels that we have that parks are on are considered residential zoning. So looking at, this is just a snip of what is available online on the city's website. So you'll see that the Cosley Zoo piece here is considered R1 zoning. 855, which doesn't show up very well, but this is a little pink area, is considered commercial zoning, so similar to the downtown area. The little bit that we have here, this hole, is similar to what we have over here, which is a good part of the Lincoln Marsh, which is considered unincorporated. So it was something that had not been incorporated at the time we purchased it, and we had not taken the time to sort of consolidate that with the other pieces. The majority of the area that we're talking about here is that R3 zoning, just like Northside Park, which is all of this area here. Going to turn it over now to our engineer. So White Engineering is who we hired in 2022, and what we hired them to do was to evaluate the information that had been provided in the master plan. As Sue had indicated, you know, it is not a hard plan for development, it is ideas. And so we wanted to hire them to look at that information and determine if what was proposed in there was actually possible to move forward with. So they were charged with conducting additional research and developing the concepts which we're looking at today. So at this time, Sean Benson from White. You want to drive on that?
Thanks, everyone, for having me here tonight. I was going to jump in and show you we saw this previously, but the previous concept we presented and the revised concept. There on the left is the old one, new one on the right. Previously, 258 parking spaces were proposed, and the new revised concept has 150 spaces, which is an over 40% reduction from what we had previously proposed. One of the other significant changes are the setbacks. So the city requires 15-foot minimum landscape buffers on each side. The previous plan had 30-foot minimum setbacks, which at that time doubled the actual required setback. And currently, the new setbacks are as follows. On the north side, it's 67.4 feet. The east side, 67.7. The south side, 49.9. The southeast, right north of the drive here, is at 30.5 feet, and the setback from Gary is just over 75 feet. A little bit more detailed view of the current plan here. Again, still proposing permeable pavers for the entire parking lot. Ingress and egress will come off of Prairie and Gary to take advantage of the new signalized intersection that the city of Wheaton is improving. The north entrance here to the parcel will be gated and only used for deliveries and maintenance activities. All along the residential sides of the property will be an 8-foot solid wood screen fence. And then along the east-west side of Gary will be a decorative aluminum fence to help pedestrian access and control for the crossing at Prairie and Gary. Should also mention too that we're proposing that the main entrance here will have gate arms, access control, so cars cannot enter the lot during closed hours. The landscape screening all along the property here will meet the city of Wheaton requirements. Which was 15-foot minimum, and obviously we have increased that quite a bit. And that will have trees, shrubs, and grasses. And the planting material will meet the requirement of at least 8-foot minimum height once mature. In addition to the landscape screening requirement, there'll be a solid evergreen screen next to the fence, which will reach a mature height of 12 to 15 feet. And as mentioned previously, a solid wood fence is being added, which will completely screen and also keep, for safety reasons, anyone out of the parking lot. Few quick examples here of the screening and the grasses, which will be used to supplement the shrub plants within the parking lot, and some of the native grasses will be added to the landscape screen buffer as well. Examples of some of the shrubs that will be used, they'll be placed along the property line, screening buffer, as well as within the lot islands. The shrubs along the property line will have a minimum mature height of 8 foot, and the parking lot shrubs will vary in size from 3 foot to 6 foot height at maturity. A few of the different tree examples, the shade trees will be around the parking lot perimeter and the parking lot islands. The shade trees will reach 50 plus feet depending on the species at maturity. The evergreen and ornamental trees will be placed within the landscape screening buffer and along the property line as required by code. The evergreen trees will reach approximately 40 to 50 foot height at maturity, and the ornamental trees will reach 15 to 25 foot height at maturity. All in all, there's over 70 trees proposed on the current plan. And just some quick examples of the decorative aluminum fence along Gary, the 8-foot solid screen fence along the residential sides, and some different options for the permeable pavers. These are a Unilock brand, so we're looking at different colors, but it will provide a nice aesthetic and water quality improvement. All right, I wanted to touch base on the flood concerns. I just wanted to first state that the project needs to meet the City of Wheaton Stormwater Ordinance Code and the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance. So we cannot cause any adverse effects. We can't increase runoff. We can't create drainage issues with the adjacent neighbors. We need to improve all that, and that will be reviewed by the City of Wheaton and all the other permitting jurisdictions. The release of the water will be restricted and controlled per the ordinance requirements, and detention to storage will be provided. The permeable pavers plans for the parking lot, which aren't required by code, but will help reduce runoff, promote infiltration to groundwater, and provide a water quality benefit prior to discharging downstream to the creek. Quick exhibit here of the existing watershed. What is shaded here in blue is approximately 2.545 acres, and that's the amount of watershed that drains directly to the neighbors. Proposed plan shows approximately 0.49 acres of the landscape area that will continue to drain to the neighbors due to the existing watershed. That's an almost 80% reduction in direct runoff to the neighbors. Concerns about wetlands and other environmental sensitive areas. We did have, as Rob mentioned, the previous study we did have the wetlands delineated previously, and that was depicted on the topographic survey. Also, different various maps which we combined here show that the wetland area and the 50-foot buffer will not be impacted, and that's shown with the green and yellow lines. It's kind of hard to see all of them, but here. The floodplain areas will also not be impacted, which are hatched in blue and green on the screen. So that's the 100-year and the 500-year floodplains, which are shown here. So you can see the entire lot is not within the floodplain. And if it was within the floodplain, we would have to mitigate per the DuPage County Stormwater Ordinance. Really, the only impact to the site, as Rob mentioned, is to the existing Thompson Pond. And any volume that is taken away from that pond, we are providing within the updated design. I'm going to skip through a few of these if we need to come back and look at some of the plans in more detail. But I wanted to focus this one on the detention. So the plan is that the detention required per, again, the city and the ordinance, majority will be provided in underground vault. And most of that water will be collected and redirected from the high point of the site to the north here, down the lot, down along the west here, into the detention basin, and then it will discharge to the existing Thompson Pond, which currently discharges to Winfield Creek. We can come back to this if we need to. And then finally, this is just a cross-section of the low point on the site. I'm going to just go back real quick. Right here. So this cross-section you're going to see is really at the low point of the site, which at this corner of the property line is about 634.5. So that would be right here at the fence. So we have the fence, the full evergreen screen row, shrubs and trees. There'll be a small berm, and then we're going to swale as much as that the east and south side of the site into a drainage structure. And then the parking lot will have trees up at top, and then that all go to the detention. So it's kind of a relative elevation view of what we're proposing. I think Mike's going to take over, talk about the rest.
Yep. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you very much, Sean. To bring us home, again, a reiteration of what has been previously communicated through emails and this evening and the last meeting related to the remaining concerns that haven't yet been addressed this evening, which will be a reiteration somewhat of the update we put out to the community. But it's important to have the full report this evening for the board and for our friends at home and in the audience tonight. So the remaining concerns, traffic and congestion will be increased. We indicate that the visitors would access the zoo from this new lot by crossing Gary Avenue safely at a new pedestrian crosswalk and stoplight, which would be constructed at the intersection of Gary and Prairie. Independent of the Park District's concept for a new parking lot, the City of Wheaton is planning for a new traffic signal and turn lanes at this intersection as part of its Gary Avenue Improvement Project, which is anticipated to occur in 2024. The City of Wheaton conducted a traffic study, and the summary of their recommendations include that the roadway is widened for a three-lane cross-section, a culvert lengthening at Winfield Creek for the proposed cross-section, a pedestrian and bikeway multi-use path, which will run from Harrison all the way up to north of the zoo, traffic signal and lane modifications at Jewel Road, and of course, the traffic signal at Prairie Avenue, where people will cross from the new parking lot. Concern that pedestrians will unsafely cross the street. Again, the proposed parking lot will have fencing along Gary Avenue to prevent pedestrians from crossing anywhere other than the new traffic signal and the crosswalk. Next concern, litter, pollution, noise, and lights will affect the neighbors. Our response, a significantly sized landscape buffer, which we've heard a lot about this evening, and fence will be installed between the parking lot and the neighboring residential properties. By constructing a permeable lot, we can capture and clean vehicle pollutants rather than having them run off from the street parking that currently exists for overflow parking. The majority of use will be during the operating hours of the zoo, which goes up till 5 p.m. The lighting proposed for the lot will use LED technology and will be minimized to absolutely minimize light spill into the neighboring residential properties. Gates will be installed to prevent access to the lot after the zoo closes at 5 p.m., and we've already seen the use of that gate on the staff lot adjacent to the Animal Welcome Center on the neighboring property. Concern, the planned parking lot is as big as the zoo. That's not true. The revised lot is approximately 68,000 square feet, equivalent to 1.5 acres. Cosley Zoo currently occupies 4 acres. However, that becomes 5 if you include the parking lot on the west side of Gary Avenue. Concern that the project is not aligned with the mission statement of the zoo. The zoo's mission is to create connections between people and animals that will inspire lifelong conservation of the natural world. Increasing our visitor access, repairing our visitor access problem will allow the zoo to further that mission. It's that simple. Property values will be diminished by this project is a concern that has been articulated. And as we have articulated, and we heard this evening reported back to us from the residents, having a strong park district enhances the property values within a community. Further real estate sales can demonstrate that this type of development is not detrimental to neighboring property values. Now, to speak about this a little further, I'll talk a little bit just for a moment about what the park district is and what its properties are in relationship to this community, to any community. The parks and the facilities that the Park District operates are part of the fabric of this community. They do not exist separate from the community. It is not reasonable to expect that all park facilities, and we're close to 900 acres of park land in this community, including the facilities that we operate, can be reached by bike or foot traffic alone. Parks require parking lots. And we have numerous examples within the community where we have parks existing peacefully and coexisting nicely with adjacent residential properties. It happens all over the community. Examples of other Wheaton parking areas and distance to neighbors: Seven Gables Park, Central Athletic Complex, Northside Park, Rice Pool, Wheaton Park, and we'll just review a couple of these now. Seven Gables Park, that parking lot there you see is 60, from the edge of the parking lot, the curb of the parking lot, to the adjacent property line is 60 feet, which is within the vicinity of where the new buffer would be on the Cosley parking lot. That's Seven Gables, all those houses existing terrifically adjacent to that parking lot and park. Central Athletic Complex, 15 feet to the adjacent property line in that case. You move on. Northside Park. The closest area is 15 feet to the adjacent property line. All those houses there on Prairie Avenue. Rice Pool, another 15 feet adjacency to the property line there. Wheaton Park, 35 feet to the adjacent property line, and you can see those very large houses to the east there. So again, to reiterate, parks need parking lots. Our facilities need parking lots. It is not reasonable to expect that every acre of parkland can be turned into a natural area. Parks need to be visited, and we have done, I believe, a very successful and neighborly response to creating these parking facilities for access to the Wheaton Park District community's parks, and we maintain that commitment going forward as we hope to increase visitor access to Cosley Zoo. To close, again, to reiterate the estimated timeline for the continued review and hopeful resolution to this project plan. The continued design concept review by the Park Board to take place October through December of 2023. These are an estimated timeline. Obviously, the Park Board will take the time it requires to review this project carefully and with considered measure. Final design approval, we estimate, could take place between November and January of next year, and with a potential city permit submittal taking place sometime in the near future after the first of the year, once the Park Board has continued and finished its deliberations and has continued and considered input from the community as it has done this evening. We thank you for your time and attention. It has been a long night. As the director of the Park District, I want to thank everybody who's provided input this evening. It is all valuable, And I will yield the floor to President Kelly. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, I have a couple questions, but I'll let you guys go first. Who has questions? John?
I do, yeah. Yeah, the way I,
You go.
was you first? Okay, all right. Go ahead, Linda, I'll go after you.
I just wanted to thank everybody, first and foremost, before we all get into other stuff, for your coming out here tonight, sitting through this long meeting, saying what you have to say. This is how we, as a board, can really understand what the community thinks, feels, and it's important for us to know. And I want to thank everybody who's here, who is still here, who didn't just come, speak, and leave, who stayed to hear what we were going to hear and what we're going to talk about. That's really important. So I appreciate all of you staying here for the meaty part, not that what people had to say wasn't meaty, but the meaty part of the dialogue about Cosley Zoo and the parking situation.
All right, thank you. The way I see the issue that's before us is, whether we have a parking need and whether that east side, those lots there are appropriate for a parking lot for Cosley Zoo. To that end, the first question I'd have, and I know people brought it up too, how are we going about measuring the number of days where there is an overflow of parking at the zoo?
I think Sue Walgren is probably best able, as boots on the ground at the zoo, to answer that question. Sue?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we obviously do a detailed visitor count every day through our admission booth, so we know where people are coming from and how many people we have. But beyond that, we also have staff every day with their eyes on the lot, and the lot is within view of staff throughout the entire day, and we always make note of when the lot is full and we're seeing backups, and we note that every day. That's just data that we collect it's just something we do every day.
Okay, all right, thank you. I've heard a lot of objections to putting the parking lot where we're proposing to put it. There is, it was referenced by some folks about the change.org petition, and I've got this in front of me. I think it's important that we understand what the facts are. I think I heard some contradictions from Sean about what's in the change.org petition and what we're saying, so I'd like to clarify that. The first opening paragraph of the petition says, Wheaton Park District plans to build a 3.9-acre parking lot on the natural wetland environment located on the east side of Gary Avenue between Winfield Creek and Hawthorne Boulevard. Sean, would you mind addressing that again? Is that natural wetland property as outlined in this petition, or?
So the actual wetland and the wetland buffer, the actual wetland is southeast of the Thompson Pond, not in the actual location of the proposed parking lot.
So you're saying that the lots that are the proposed parking lot are not natural wetlands?
Correct.
Okay. I heard some mention of this too about when we tore down properties. There's a reference in the petition that says we quietly bought the property over several years. Now, I know that's subjective, but I just want to clear that up. The process, this was a public process, right, to acquire these properties? Mike, can you refresh my memory?
Yes, every action related to the acquisition of properties is always before the board in a public meeting, and that's as transparent as it gets.
Okay, so we approve, we can negotiate prices within executive session, obviously, we can negotiate that in private, but when we actually go to purchase or accept a gift from Cosley Foundation, like the Lanzarote property, that has to be done.
That's done in a public meeting through public action, correct?
And then we tore down houses on all those properties, and my understanding is we had to do
The expense related to the demolition of those properties were also a public action taken at a public meeting.
And we had to have we had to have notification to neighbors that we were tearing down those properties.
Correct. Residents within, I believe it's 250 feet, were notified of those demolitions.
All right, that's. I also have seen a lot of reference to flooding, which would be an obvious concern to neighbors, putting stormwater into their properties. The petition says destroying the natural wetland environment, which I don't believe it is, in order to construct a parking lot would eliminate an important natural flood control resource in an area prone to flooding. Sean, again, I hate calling you again because you just sat down. Just through your...
Good exercise, Sean.
Just through the presentation, I saw, it didn't appear to me that that property as it stands now is a natural flood control resource. It seems like it's higher ground and the water probably runs off of that. Is that correct?
Correct. So the current design is not impacting the existing floodplain. So the existing floodplain that's regulated by the county ordinance is the 100-year floodplain, which was shown in, it's the yellow, blue. So again, any of the floodplains are southeast of the Thompson Pond. So we will not be, there's no plan to mitigate floodplain or impact floodplain on this project.
Okay. All right.
John, while Sean's up there, do you mind if I ask you?
Yeah, go ahead. Don't make him sit down.
I know. So Sean, can you go back to the slide where you showed the amount of runoff that is going to the houses? All right, right there. And then after we build our parking lot, show the runoff. Can you explain how that's accomplished? I mean, we're going to build a parking lot and all of a sudden there's no runoff to the neighbors. Can you explain how that's accomplished? Because I don't think you did.
Yeah, so I tried to explain it, but sorry, I'll start again. So yeah, the natural drainage pattern, again, is from north to south here. There's kind of three watersheds. This one kind of goes west, and then this one goes directly to the Thompson Pond. So again, we're gonna mimic that as much as we can, but on this side of the parking lot, we're raising this. Someone mentioned it before. Yes, we're gonna raise that side of the parking lot, divert water south and then west. Use a series of storm sewers and inlets to get the required capacity into the detention vault, which is underground, and then that will discharge south. Within the buffer area here, we're raising, there'll be a small berm and a swale, and we're collecting as much water as feasible to try to minimize how much water goes to the neighbors' properties. If we could pick up all this, we would. It's just this southeast corner is just too low regarding the feasibility of gravity draining the existing floodplain and the high water level of our proposed detention.
Okay, so if I'm not mistaken, then the way you're doing that is the entire parking lot has a curb around it, correct?
Correct.
So any rainwater that falls in the parking lot is going to go into the storm drains, which is then going to head south to the storm collection tank, and then it's going to be released slowly through a pipe directly into the creek, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so then are we also, the other areas that are in the buffer outside of the parking lot, are you actually directing some of those flow over the curb and into the parking lot too?
So yeah, so there's a swale here. That's what this storm sewer is here. So this water will drain into this structure. That's how we're collecting the east and south buffer.
So the stuff outside of the parking lot, you're collecting with a swale and still bringing it to the same storm trap?
Correct.
Okay.
Over here on this side is higher, so that's naturally going to drain to our parking lot. Once after this corner, everything comes directly in. It's just the natural drainage pattern here is to the corner, right there. That's the low point.
And then can you show me where the outlet of the storm trap is and where it goes?
Right here.
All right, directly into the... Okay, thank you.
So Sean, am I understanding this? By building, if we move forward and we build this parking lot in that area, doing what we need to do, we are going to mitigate the amount of runoff that is currently on that property. So we're improving the flow of water away from the homes by building this parking lot.
In my opinion, yes. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I just have one more question. It's for Sean, too. Might as well while you're still up there. My last question is, did I hear, is this proposal got a fence line at the property line? Is that where the fence line is?
Well, actually, the fence line could go in one of two different places.
Yeah.
It could go on the curb of the parking lot, or it could go on the adjacent property line.
All right.
That is yet to be determined.
So we could theoretically take a fence line off the property line adjacent to the neighbors, move it all the way to our parking lot, and then we could plant green buffer in between that space there. And then, so the fence would be screened by the trees that we plant and everything else, and then the parking lot would be completely fenced off and removed from the
And then the
neighbors.
fence is 60 feet away from the property lines? In most areas, or whatever the buffer is?
Yeah, it varied. There's the three sides, the two sides are 60 plus, then the south side was 45, and then the skinny part is the 30-foot buffer along the access drive.
We would need, if we put it on the curb as opposed to on the property line, we would certainly need to create access so we'd be able to get in there and maintain it.
Yeah, right, understood. That's all I have.
Anybody else have
No,
any
very-
questions?
very
for the
informative.
staff?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so you've heard from the community at the last couple of meetings. We've heard from the staff tonight. It was discussion only, so I think everybody's got stuff they can think about. It'll become an item on next month's agenda too, whether it's an action item or not, well,
Remains to be
needs to be
seen.
seen. But thank you very much. I also would like to thank everybody for being respectful of all the speakers tonight. I thought it was a very well-organized, meeting on both sides, and I really appreciate everybody taking the time to listen to everybody else's comments. We didn't have outbursts, we didn't have, we had a lot of decorum, and we really appreciated that. That's the way the meeting went tonight. So thank you all very much. I think we have a closed session item tonight, too.
We got
Yes?
annual reports and so forth.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. It's been a long night. Yep, we'll move on to the annual reports.
We made it,
So,
guys.
Whoever has, sorry you guys had to sit here all night before we got to your report.
We're glad you did.
So, we'll do them all at once, so anybody who wants to ask questions on an annual report, we'll start down with John. Do you have anything tonight?
I don't, no.
Linda, do you have anything tonight?
Let's just have everyone be quiet, so.
Yeah, that's fine.
Just wanted to comment on the reports. Thank you, they're excellent. Continue doing the excellent job that you guys are doing, and thanks for being here tonight.
Terry?
Yes. I will try to make it brief. I want to refer to the aquatics annual report. Well done, as usual. All of our, our staff annual reports are always great, but I want to refer to a couple of the areas in the report. Over the course of the 2023 season, we had 119,629 patrons at our aquatic facilities. We also saw record numbers in pool pass sales. Those pool pass sales and our visitation to our aquatic facilities pushed our daily revenue up, to let's just say a increase of $30,685 over the previous year. And I want to refer to, our employment at our aquatic facilities. Wheaton Park District facilities employed 227 individuals during the 2023 summer season, and that accounted for, in terms of Wheaton residents, that was 83% of our aquatic staff coming from Wheaton, which also resulted in approximately $556,310 returned to the local economy through wages. I think that's pretty significant. I think that speaks well for our park district. Rice Pool saw an increase of over 2,800 patrons compared to the 2022 season. And Northside Pool saw an increase of 390 patrons from the 2022 season. So people did not shy away from our aquatic facilities. I'll just make a couple comments about our staff reports in general. I want to say, to staff, Mike, I'm at the community center about 3 times a week for some fitness, and the reconstruction work in the Parks Plus area reported to be going very well, as is the reconstruction of the community center parking lot. I think they're moving along fairly well. Anybody make a brief comment about how our Halloween happening went a couple weekends ago at community center? Anybody know?
It was great. We had over 1,000 people in attendance.
That's a winner.
It was great.
Nice.
Good weather too, right?
No, it wasn't great weather. No.
I didn't
We
remember.
still had that many
Scary weather.
people.
Okay. Just referring to Sue's report, Cosley Zoo, the program numbers and participants increased in 2023 over 2022. So we also had over 94,000 people visited the zoo through the end of September, compared to 87,241 during the same time frame in 2022. So, obviously people are still interested in our Cosley Zoo operation. I should mention that one of our board members, to my right, Commissioner Fry, was the senior division club champion for our Arrowhead Club Championship, so apparently he's playing a little bit of golf there. Andy, for you, and it's pretty important, we're 2023 rounds as of the end of September, over 59,000, and that's also up about 5,000 number of rounds as of the end of, compared to the end of same period in 2022. So thanks, Andy. Kudos to the staff. That's all I had.
Done.
Bill?
I just wanted to say thank you to the great staff and excellent leadership of our executive director, and quickly thank him and the staff. I attended the National Parks and Recreation Association meeting in Dallas a couple weeks ago, and I was, again, impressed with the way staff interacts with all of the committee meetings. I attended several. All of the resources, all of the excellent opportunities to connect with networking vendors and to support people that do such a great job to give our staff the resources they need. It was a truly remarkable experience, and I thank you for letting me go.
I just
Have anything? So
I just want to add thank you to really seriously each and every one of you who is here for all of the work that you guys do all the time, but particularly in the last several months. We've had a lot of work. It's been a lot for everybody, and so thank you for all of the work that you've done. It does not go unnoticed.
I'd move to adjourn our regular meeting and move into pending probable or imminent litigation in closed session under 5 ILCS 120/2C11.
Second.
You have to say we're not coming back.
Commissioner Vyers?
Yes.
Commissioner Pacharich?
Yes.
Commissioner Mee? Commissioner Fry? Commissioner Barrett?
Yes.
President Kelly?
Yes.
8:15.
And it's not expected that the board will be coming back into session to take any action on anything tonight.